Chapter 22-28. Work hard and continue to work hard. I have high hopes for you. Grievous patted Alice's shoulder and gave her a rare look of encouragement. She continued to comfort her. Not everyone is as crazy as Dustless. Just do your best. Madam Dean, I have something. I have been wanting to ask you. As though she recalled something, Alice gathered her courage and looked at Grievous. Speak your mind. Grievous wasn't pretentious and was very straightforward. Can we surpass Dustless? Alice looked at Grievous expectantly. Her heart was filled with hope. She was a very strong person and it was obviously impossible for her to look up to Dustless. Grievous knitted her brows. Was there a need to ask this question? Some people couldn't surpass others in their entire lives and Dustless happened to be such a person. Alice, although that guy is powerful, he isn't limitless. As time passes, you will surpass Dustless sooner or later, Grievous said softly. She had high hopes for Alice, but in her heart, she said sadly, I'm sorry, Alice. That guy might be your destiny and you are destined to look up to him. She knew that Alice was a very hard-working girl, but she didn't want to crush her confidence at this moment. Besides, it wasn't a bad thing to set an example for Alice. At least she could work harder in the future and look up to Dustless. Dustless. Is that the guy? Joe was hiding in a dark corner. He was wearing an army green robe that covered his entire body. Only a pair of bright eyes could be seen. That's right. It's him. The black-robed person beside Joe nodded slightly and spoke in a gentle tone. However, when she mentioned Dustless, her tone was obviously cold and hostile. Lysia. Are you lying to me? Is that guy also an elf envoy? Joe looked at her suspiciously. He always thought that the only successor of the Demon King was God Fengzhou. Now that there was another Dustless, how could he not be confused? As you can see, do you see the white-haired little girl beside her? Restia asked. Hearing this, Gio followed Lysia's line of sight. His silver hair hung down to his waist, and his expression was a little sluggish. He looked very innocent. That little girl is Dustless's contracted sprite. Dustless defeated Celestial Being Fengzhou. If you defeat Celestial Being Dustless, you should know what that means, right? Nonsense, of course I understand. Do you think I'm an idiot? Casting a cold glance at Restia, Gio said with glowing eyes, then I am the true successor of the Demon King. Not bad. Celestia nodded with a smile. A glint flashed across her eyes. In fact, this was her plan to kill two birds with one stone. All this while, Gio had regarded Celestial Being Fengzhou as his greatest enemy. With Celestial Being Fengzhou's current strength, it was meaningless for him to fight Gio. I'll let the two of you fight it out and die together in the end. Celestia's thin lips curled up slightly. Suddenly, a pair of black wings extended from her back. With a light flap, she disappeared without a trace. This pretty boy is clearly a freeloader. He's trash like Celestial Being Fengzhou. The Demon King is a job that requires strength. Only I am suitable to be the Demon King. Gio whispered softly. Seeing Dustless and Estelle taking a stroll together, and noticing that there were no suspicious figures around, he decisively followed them without hesitation. Don't tell me you were a starving ghost in your previous life? This is already the fifth one, Estelle. Dustless rubbed the girl's silver hair and stared at Estelle who was holding an ice cream in her hand. This girl was a real glutton. In less than 15 minutes, she had finished 5 ice creams. This speed was enough to shock everyone. It was rare to see a sprite with such a big appetite. I just like it. Estelle licked another mouthful of ice cream with a face full of happiness. Up to you. I don't know if sprites will get a stomachache from eating this. Dustless was too lazy to poke his nose into other people's business. He sat on a bench by the side of the path and closed his eyes in satisfaction. It was as if he was talking to himself, but at the same time, he wanted to say something to others. There are so many little rats these days. Celestial Being Fengzhou left, but an even more arrogant rat came in. However, no one paid any attention to Dustless's words. It was quiet, as if there was no one around. Still not going to come out, Geoenzart? His closed eyes suddenly opened. Looking at the blurry reflection behind the tree trunk to his left, he sneered and said, "This hiding technique is really childish. You dare to ask me to come out? Are you impatient with fire?" Being discovered by Dustless, Joe's face froze for a moment. Then, he was furious. Dustless actually asked him to come out? How dare he? Hee, you really are a wretch. Being stared at by Geo's fiery eyes, Dustless sneered and said, "I told you nicely before, but you pretended not to hear it. Later, I asked you to get out, and you really did. Are you a wretch? You. Looks like you really don't want to live anymore." Geo was furious. He had a bad temper to begin with. Now that he was being mocked by Dustless, how could he endure it? "You will die a horrible death." A pair of scarlet eyes circled around Dustless. Geo smiled cruelly. From his throat, a strange and eerie laughter could be heard. It seemed like he was choosing the right place to attack. The way his face was distorted was even more chilling. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22-29. Ah. You are indeed a crazy wild dog. His gaze gradually became cold and cheerless. Dustless carefully searched through his memories, and only then did he suddenly recall that this fellow was inextricably linked with Restia. "That woman instigated you to challenge me, didn't she?" Dustless had a hopeless expression as he mocked, "You don't have to say it, I know why you are here. You are here for the position of Demon King, right? Actually, I am not interested in it. Whoever likes it can take it. But forgive me for being blunt, but an idiot like you who is easily used can't even become a demon hound, let alone a demon king." Demon hound? Hearing this, Geo first looked at Dustless in confusion and asked without hesitation, "What is that? Why have I never heard of it?" Demon hound. In other words, it is a wild dog that helps a tiger do evil, Dustless said casually. What? It would have been better if he had not said it. These words completely enraged Geo. His blood-red eyes immediately flashed with a soul-stirring and terrifying aura. Looking at Dustless's position, Geo roared ferociously, "Show yourself, thunder-breaking spirit." Boom boom boom. The silver lightning appeared without any warning signs and immediately engulfed Wu Chen's entire body. The sound of crackling reverberated incessantly. His entire body was filled with the smell of burning. "Humph, you are burnt. This is the result of going against me." Seeing Dustless's miserable state, Geo could not help but curl his lips in disdain. He muttered, "I thought this guy was very capable. I didn't expect him to be so weak. What a waste of your what?" An unfamiliar voice suddenly sounded. Geo's heart skipped a beat as he instinctively felt a sense of danger. Just as he was about to retreat, a large hand pressed down on his shoulder. "Damn it, let me go." Geo struggled with all his might and used all his strength, but he could not escape from this thin and weak arm. He could only turn his head and roar, "If you have the guts, fight me for 300 rounds. Ha 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 ha. 300 rounds? You didn't even last one round before you were subdued by me. You want to fight me for 300 rounds? Was it a dream? Idiot." Dustless did not hide his ridicule. "You, paled." He looked at the burnt Dustless. It was unknown when it had turned into a piece of wood with black smoke rising from it. "Do you want me to admit defeat just like that?" Geo gritted his teeth and shook his head decisively. He said angrily, "You trash, in the end, paw." With a crisp sound, Geo was sent flying by Dustless's slap. There was a palm print on his face that looked like it had been burned by iron, and blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth. "It hurts." Geo grimaced in pain. To his dismay, he found that a few of his teeth had been broken by Dustless. Roar! Ju, who had never suffered such a huge loss, turned into a ferocious wolf at this moment. He howled madly at Dustless. It was not hard to see that he was truly enraged this time. You still dare to shout at me? This time, you broke a few teeth. Next time, you might lose your life. Dustless looked deeply at Ju and said unhurriedly. Hearing those words, Ju instantly fell silent. His face turned ferocious when he came back to his senses. He was actually frightened by a single sentence. This was simply a great humiliation. When he opened his mouth and was about to retaliate, Ju felt as if his throat was stuffed with a piece of bone. His voice was blocked and he couldn't speak at all. Did Restia trick you into challenging me? Seeing that this kid had quieted down, Dustless said slowly, do you understand that this is her scheme? Scheme? Ju frowned slightly and asked unkindly, what do you mean? No wonder you were used. Your brain is as stupid as a rock. Dustless explained softly, no matter which one of us dies, it will be beneficial to Restia. Do you understand? Why? Ju was even more puzzled. Because both of us are enemies of God Fengzhou. Do you understand? As long as one of us dies, Restia will have one less obstacle. It would be best if you can kill me. If you can't, the one who will be killed will be you. It won't be bad for Restia either. Restia has no reason to frame me. Ju's tone was cold. He thought that Dustless was trying to drive a wedge between them. Idiot, don't you understand? You want to become the Demon King, which is a threat to Restia. The Demon King in her eyes is God Fengzhou. Do you understand? Therefore, you are destined to be Restia's enemy. She only has God Fengzhou in her heart. There is no place for a spare tire like you. Dustless scolded. This guy was really stupid. Seems like you are right. Ju lowered his head and pondered. Although he was relatively slow, this did not mean that he was stupid. He could not even distinguish the most basic use. You can leave. I have no interest in the Demon King's position. Dustless waved his hand and said expressionlessly. Soon after, he turned around and left under Ju's stunned gaze. Just you wait. Ju glared fiercely at Dustless's back before finally disappearing. Dustless, Kun, is it appropriate to let the tiger return to the mountain like this? That man will definitely return in the future. Esther looked at Dustless. He did not understand Dustless's actions. I know. He will definitely continue to cause trouble for me. He will not be satisfied if he doesn't kill me. Dustless explained as he walked. Soon after, he smiled sinisterly and said, however, this is not important for the time being. Now, Ju will definitely want to cut Restia and God Fengzhou into pieces. I see. Esther was enlightened. Esther came to a realization. If he was not wrong, Ju would be looking for trouble with God Fengzhou now. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:30. For Roswald, the meaning of life is to resurrect his master. For this reason, he has lived for more than 400 years, all for his master. Now that the plan is about to be realized, but Amelia dropped the ball at the critical moment, who can tolerate it? Therefore, he will only change Amelia's mind at all costs. Heh 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 heh. I have a good idea. His eyes suddenly lit up, and Roswald smiled maliciously. The thick makeup on her cheeks made her look like a frozen corpse, which made people shudder. Time flies by, the night is quiet, the moonlight is like a plate, and countless crows in the king's city are cawing in unison. Only the moonlight hanging high in the sky is aloof from worldly affairs, so cold and aloof. Let's rest for the night, let's go back tomorrow. Before returning to the room, Amelia greeted Dustless in her pajamas. Her snow-white legs were half exposed, and her skin was flawless, as smooth as silk. Her silver-white hair was like a ribbon, casually hanging down to her waist. Because she planned to give up the qualification of the king's choice, Amelia had a relieved smile on her face, and her whole person was like a happy little elf. It has to be said that Amelia's figure is quite good, especially at the moment when she is wearing pajamas. Her cleavage protruded from half of the pajamas, exposed to the outside. Under the illumination of the light, the stalwart meatball seemed to be glowing, making people a little dazzled. "Little girl, you are really a beauty." Dustless bowed his head and smiled, and couldn't help but look at Amelia a few more times. His eyes were as calm as still water, only pure calmness and appreciation. Hearing this, for some reason, Amelia suddenly became nervous. Her heartbeat also suddenly sped up, and her eyes were dotted with a dense light of hope. She somewhat stuttered as she asked, "What you said, is it true?" The moment he finished speaking, Amelia's beautiful face flushed red. She lowered her head, not daring to look at Dustless. She had always felt inferior because of this body. It was because Amelia's appearance was close to that of the Witch of Jealousy. She had been criticized, but Dustless was the first person to praise her beauty. "Of course it's true. You are indeed very beautiful. I really don't know why those rotten nobles would compare you to a witch. Is it a sin to be beautiful? Or is it because you look exactly like the Witch of Jealousy?" How comical. Dustless was deeply puzzled. Could this be the so-called femme fatale? In the end, it was the pure fear and hatred that humans had for the Witch of Jealousy. A few hundred years ago, the Witch of Jealousy almost destroyed the world. She did all sorts of evil and was even more evil than a demon. She left people with unforgettable memories. Perhaps that's why people are afraid of me. Amelia smiled bitterly, her tone filled with endless bleakness. What a joke, judging a book by its cover. Sure enough, it's extremely pedantic. Dustless snorted disdainfully. Compared to what he had done in the past, what was a mere Witch of Jealousy? It must be known that he had slaughtered more than 1 or 2 worlds. Using infinite Tsukuyomi to control all humans and extract their vitality, this was what Dustless had done in the past. What was the Witch of Jealousy compared to Dustless? A drop in the ocean. Even though he was criticized and reprimanded by countless people, Dustless still lived a carefree life, detached from the world, while the majority of those people who criticized him turned into bones. This is interesting. Gently opening his mouth, Dustless was about to persuade Amelia when he suddenly frowned. His observation haki immediately spread out, covering the entire courtyard, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "What's wrong? You look so scary." Amelia was also shocked when she saw the cold light in Dustless's eyes. She subconsciously stepped back, feeling that she was about to be swallowed up. "It's okay, it's just a reckless mouse suddenly came in." Dustless showed a smile, like the warm winter sun, driving away the uneasiness in Amelia's heart, and softly comforted her. The smelly mouse that sneaked in didn't understand how bad it is to disturb people's sleep late at night. Could it be an assassin sent by the other king's heir? Amelia clenched her fists. Although she was relatively simple, it didn't mean that she didn't understand everything. Who knows, it went to Rom's room. This mouse is very smart. Dustless's eyes were shining, and he was keenly aware that something was wrong. Among their group, the weakest was Rom. This guy specifically picked on the soft persimmon. Did he know in advance that Rom's strength was insufficient? It seems that it's an acquaintance. This is interesting. Dustless smiled faintly, and immediately walked over slowly. His body was as light and agile as a ghost, without making a sound. Should we wake up Rem and Roswald? With the 2 of them together, our safety is guaranteed. Amelia whispered behind Dustless. It was the first time she encountered such a situation, so she couldn't help but feel a little nervous. There's no need for that, maybe. We don't need to wake them up, the 2 of them already know. They're just watching silently. Roswald is very powerful. I can discover that someone has sneaked into the house, so I guess he's no exception. Now that he's turning a deaf ear to it, it can only mean one thing. Dustless's eyes flashed with a cold light, and the corner of his mouth revealed a hint of coldness. The person who sneaked in is very familiar with us and knows that Rom's strength is the weakest. What does this mean? Do you think it's a coincidence? Dustless looked at Amelia meaningfully. If it's not a coincidence, could it be one of us? Amelia said to herself in horror, feeling a wave of fear from the bottom of her heart. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:31. Celestia was furious. She had trained Zhu to deal with Dustless, but now this brat had betrayed her and wanted to backstab Fengzhou deity. How could she tolerate this? This B*TCH really used me as a tool. In the end, Fengzhou deity took advantage of it. Zhu lowered his head and pondered, but in fact, he had been secretly observing Celestia's movements from the corner of his eyes. When he saw the anger deep in her eyes, he knew that this B*TCH had used him before. Damn it. Thinking about how everything he had done was ultimately used by someone else, Zhu flew into a rage. A sky-burning fury was brewing in his heart. After working so hard to get to where he was today, anyone would be angry if they had to take advantage of someone else in the end. Cutting that brat into 8 pieces is too easy for him. The anger in Zhu's heart was ignited. Like a wild beast, his whole body was emitting a tidal wave of killing intent. What do you want to do? Celestia asked coldly. I'll have to study it carefully. Zhu smiled cruelly like a merciless executioner. For example, let him suffer a fate worse than death. Let Fengzhou deity live in this world. How to torture him is a delicate task. I'll have to think about it slowly. Alicia Elf Academy. Dustless, are you really going to pull that Fianna into our team? That woman doesn't look like a good person. I advise you to think about it carefully. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. In Dustless's room, Linslet was seriously advising him. Linslet, I appreciate your surprise. I also know that Fianna wants to trick me, but since the enemy has made a move, I can't just run away, especially when the enemy is a woman. So, I can't back down, or else I'll look down on myself. Dustless was lying on the sofa in boredom. He fiddled with his fingers in an extremely idle manner, wasting time. Moreover, these days have been too boring. If someone jumped out to help me pass the time, it might not be a bad thing. To be honest, I really regret kicking Fengzhou deity out. Sigh. Some things can only be cherished after losing them. Now that I've lost my toy, the Fengzhou celestial being, I yearn for him to appear before my eyes even more. As soon as he said that, Wu Chen's face was full of regret, as if he had done the biggest mistake in his life. If deity Feng Zhao hears your words, he will definitely tremble in fear. Linslet rolled her eyes and helplessly said, but since you've decided, I won't stop you. Just don't regret it. Dong dong dong. At this moment, there was the sound of someone knocking on the door. Wu Chen glanced at Estelle and the silly little girl went to open the door. You treat your contracted sprite as a nanny? On the other side, Claire was quite dissatisfied. She had spent a lot of effort in the past, but still couldn't tame Estelle. But now Dustless was using Esther as a servant, and Esther was so obedient, which really made Claire envious. What nanny? This can only mean that we have a deep relationship. Don't speak carelessly, little girl. Dustless glanced at Claire and smiled. When you mention Estelle, I can always smell a special smell. What smell? Claire sniffed her body and asked without feeling strange. You don't even know? Dustless laughed and teased. Of course it's the sour smell of a jar of vinegar. Go to hell. Claire's face turned red when she heard this. She picked up a pillow and threw it at him without holding back. Bang! Dustless naturally dodged at the first moment, but the others were the ones in trouble. Alice, who was walking over elegantly, was hit by the pillow. Are you provoking me? Claire Lucio. Alice glared, throwing aside the pillow that had hit her cheek. So what if I am? Facing the strong Alice, Claire naturally wouldn't lower her head and admit defeat. Besides, their tempers didn't get along, so it was even more impossible for her to lower her head. "You," Alice's mouth twitched when she heard this. She cursed her bad luck. "Who did I provoke? She attacked me as soon as she came in." "Alice. You're here for something, right? Don't fuss over such small matters. Just say what you want to say." Dustless came out to mediate when he saw that the two girls were about to fight. "Headmistress Gruaz is looking for you." Alice nodded slightly. She couldn't be bothered to argue with Claire. Besides, she knew that she didn't have any ill intentions. "That witch is looking for me. That's interesting. Doesn't she think of me as a jinx?" Dustless touched his chin and couldn't help but be interested. He smiled and said, "Let's go take a look." In Gruaz's office, an adorable young lady stood in front of Grievous' desk. The anger on her pretty face was clearly visible, and her delicate fists were clenched. Perhaps it wasn't because of Grievous' identity and strength. She would have already jumped over and violently beaten her up. "Headmistress Gruaz, are you joking?" the girl asked angrily. She opened her mouth slightly. "You want me to team up with that guy to carry out a mission? It's better to just kill me." "But you've already agreed. Didn't you announce that you're joining Dustless's team?" Gruaz took a sip of coffee and asked, "Are you regretting it?" "Princess Fianna. But I said it out of anger. I did it on purpose for him to see." Fianna complained. Her pretty face was full of disdain. "Dustless, that stinking brat, is extremely detestable. I can't wait to skin him alive even in my dreams. How can I join his team?" "Hey, you can even meet me in your dreams? You're really using me for your fantasies." At this moment, Dustless's lazy and teasing tone suddenly came. Fianna's head was suddenly filled with a bunch of crows. "P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 comments plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters." Chapter 2232. Damn Ross, if I knew my opponent was this pervert, I wouldn't have accepted this mission even if I was beaten to death. I was tricked by him. Elusa looked nervously at Dustless, who was approaching her, and felt a headache coming on. Although she was relatively conceited about her own strength, she also understood that the person in front of her was unfathomable. She had lost miserably the last time they fought. "Wait, let's talk." Elusa looked at Dustless with a smile on her face. Even though she was very cowardly, she could only bow her head. When she fought with Dustless, she was crushed. "You have something to say? Are you an idiot? You're going to assassinate my friend now, and you still want me to talk to you?" Dustless sneered again and again. "I let you go the first time, I hope you can be more sensible, but you still came to die without hesitation. In that case, whoosh whoosh whoosh." In the dead silent space, a few inexplicably cold gusts of wind blew, and Elusa suddenly shivered, cold sweat quickly sliding down like raindrops. "Of course, if, then," Dustless turned the thread of discussion and his eyes jumped with a strange light. He said slowly, "If you are willing to tell me who is behind the scenes, I don't mind letting you go." Gulp. Roswald, who was hiding in the dark, heard Wu Chen's words and his heart suddenly tensed up. He broke out in a cold sweat. "What should I do if they sell me out? All of my plans will be destroyed in an instant." So, she must not say it. Ross's murderous intent was awe-inspiring, and his eyes were locked on Elusa coldly. As long as he found that she was suspected of speaking, he would kill her. "This won't do." Elusa shook her head and said indifferently, "Assassins have their own rules. If I confess to my employer, then I won't be able to survive on this road." "Then." Dustless's eyes were cold. "You go, whoosh whoosh whoosh." However, before Dustless's voice had finished speaking, Elusa suddenly disappeared. In the night, the cold light danced and rushed straight to another black shadow. "Get over here." Taking advantage of Lom's carelessness, Elusa suddenly flashed behind her and skillfully grabbed her with her scimitar at Lom's neck. It's actually this, all of this had happened in the blink of an eye. It was clear that Eliza had been prepared in advance. She had purposely acted as if she was about to start a fight with Dustless and then decisively launched a sneak attack on Lom. "You're so young, but you've got a lot of tricks up your sleeve." Dustless gave him a thumbs up, his tone full of praise. "Oh. I don't think I have the strength to fight with a terrifying person like you. Therefore, I can only use some small tricks." With the hostage in her hands, she was a little calm. "Get out of the way if you don't want this little girl to die." Looking at Dustless with hostility, Ilusa threatened coldly. Dustless, Amelia was also extremely nervous. It was the first time she had encountered such a situation. For a moment, she couldn't help but feel a little hesitant and didn't know what to do. How childish. "Do you think you can leave here alive after capturing Lom?" Dustless sneered. In addition to the murderous intent in his cold tone, there was also a trace of contempt. "Do you want to watch this girl die?" Ilusa's expression changed and she scolded, "Or do you think I won't kill her? Don't underestimate my courage. If I die, there's still someone to be buried with me. Then I won't lose anything." "No, you misunderstood me." Dustless shook his head and explained calmly, "I mean, before you kill her, she'll be dead." Dustless was expressionless. He just looked at Ilusa quietly, as if waiting for her to make a move. His eyes were calm and full of contempt. "You forced me to do this." Hearing this, Ilusa was furious. The scimitar in her hand suddenly stabbed at Lom's throat. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Right at this moment, a flash of light suddenly appeared in the dark space. It whistled out and arrived beside Ilusa in a split second. Moreover, it grabbed Ilusa with lightning speed and subdued her. "Bastard, let go of me." Ilusa was furious. This speed was too abnormal. In the blink of an eye, she was subdued. The scimitar was about to pierce Lom's neck. "You're courting death." Seeing Ilusa being so insensible, Dustless kicked her. Bang! Ilusa was kicked hard in the abdomen and her whole body was suddenly kicked out. She fell and rolled more than 10 meters away. She looked at Dustless with a painful expression, her eyes full of hatred. "Ah, you're about to die and you still dare to stare at me like this?" Dustless shook his head. At the same time, he looked at Lom and asked softly, "Are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere?" "No, thank you." Lom looked at Dustless gratefully. Perhaps if it weren't for him, he would have been killed by Ilusa. Thump thump thump, at the same time, a burst of messy footsteps suddenly sounded. Such a huge movement alarmed everyone, including Kaituki Subaru who rushed over. At the same time, the lights in the whole house were all lit up in an instant. Roswald and others rushed over and looked at Ilusa with a covetous look. "Oh no, if this guy is captured alive, he might betray me." Roswald was burning with anxiety. He had met Ilusa before. What if he was captured alive by Dustless and betrayed him because of his weak will? "Tell me, which king's heir sent you to assassinate Lady Amelia?" Roswald glared at Ilusa, his body surging with a large amount of magic power, and he looked at Ilusa with an unkind face. "Is this guy trying to silence me?" Looking at Roswald with a smile, Dustless's ridicule flashed across his face. "P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates." Chapter 2233. You're really disgusting. You're too hypocritical. At this moment, not only Dustless expressed disdain, but Ilusa was also the same. Her small mouth opened gently and she looked at Roswald dumbfoundedly. She didn't expect this guy to look very funny on the surface, but his shrewdness and tricks were so deep. His kung fu was absolutely perfect when it came to scheming. Looking up, Roswald in front of her was glaring at her, and his eyes contained endless hostility, as if Ilusa was his enemy who killed his father. However, if it was known that Ilusa was hired by Roswald, most people would drop their eyes and give him the middle finger decisively. With such a shocking acting talent, it would be a waste of resources to continue acting as a clown. Tell me, which king's candidate sent you to assassinate me? If you are willing to tell me the truth, I can be merciful and spare your life, otherwise. Having said that, Roswald glanced at the frightened Rom, and the veins on his forehead jumped violently, and he said angrily, "If you don't tell me the truth, I will make you regret living in this world, and let you understand the consequences of hurting my servant." Clap *, clap *, clap. At this moment, Dustless suddenly clapped and gave Roswald a thumbs up. Movie King, Dustless's heart was filled with emotion. The person who sent Alyssa to sneak attack was obviously Roswald, this bastard, but now he can say such shameless words. He must be a natural performer. What do you mean by this? Roswald's face changed slightly, and his tone was a little gloomy. He felt that Dustless's words had a hidden meaning. I'm praising you. Dustless chuckled. Roswald's acting skills were really good. If I tell you the person behind me, will you let me go? After a while, Alyssa's tone became weak, as if she was really afraid. Say it, I can let you go once. Roswald said blankly, but he was laughing in his heart. All of this was exactly as he planned. It was Anastasia Heason who sent me. Alyssa's thin lips opened slightly and said slowly, before Amelia's night Dustless defeated Julius and made Anastasia lose face, so she hired me to find trouble with you. It's best to kill all of you. It's a good organization, it should have been discussed in advance. Dustless curled his lips and his face was full of disdain. Anastasia was also one of the king's candidates. Her knight was Julius, who was crushed by him. Now Anastasia sent an assassin to assassinate Wu Chen. Everything seemed reasonable and there was nothing suspicious on the surface, but in fact it was not. Wu Chen understood that the person behind the scenes was definitely Ross Val, and it had nothing to do with the girl named Anastasia. Lady Amelia, Roswald suddenly turned to look at Amelia and said in a deep voice, although I'm very sorry to say this, it seems that you still have to continue the king's selection. Now that you haven't given up, Lady Anastasia is acting recklessly against you. If you give up the king's selection, she will definitely retaliate against you even more crazily. This, Amelia hesitated, her heart was tangled, looking at Rom full of self-blame. If it weren't for her, she might not have been kidnapped and assassinated. Insidious guy. Seeing this, Dustless couldn't help but sneer. Roswald sent Alyssa to assassinate Amelia, in fact, to force Amelia to continue to participate in the king's selection. Even if Rom really sacrificed himself, he didn't care. Although I didn't kill this little girl, my mission is also completed. Alyssa looked at Rom twice. According to the predetermined plan, she first killed Rom, then deliberately got captured, and confessed that the person behind the scenes was the other king's heir, and then Roswald would silently let her go. But now it seems that there is no need. Phew. Noticing that everyone seemed to be distracted, Alyssa quickly turned into a flash of light and left. Want to run? You're looking for death. At this moment, Roswald's magic power went berserk and he looked like a clown. At this moment, he turned into an incomparably cold killer and blocked Alyssa's path in an instant. What do you mean by this? Did you change your plan? Roswald. Alyssa was stunned when she saw Roswald appear in front of her with a bloodthirsty and gloomy smile. She was a little sluggish for a while. This is different from the plan. This guy, Alyssa looked straight at Roswald, her hands clenched the curved sword, not daring to have the slightest carelessness and relaxation. Roswald's eyes were filled with boiling killing intent and Alyssa felt that her body was about to melt. According to the original plan, she would leave quietly and there would be no drama of Roswald chasing after her. Idiot, you've been fooled. At this time, you still don't understand Roswald's ideas. Your brain is really slow. No wonder you were abandoned after being used. Dustless saw Alyssa's blank face and immediately understood that this guy was deceived. What an idiot. Why did Roswald suddenly turn against her? To put it bluntly, Alyssa has no value. If this kind of person continues to live, it will be too much of a threat to him. After all, once the conspiracy between the two is exposed, Roswald will be instantly ruined. Not to mention helping Amelia get the throne and slaying the dragon. It will be a big problem whether he can survive or not. And in this world, only the dead can't speak. What Roswald intends to do is self-evident. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22-34. What do you want to do? I warn you, don't mess around, don't forget your identity. If I tell you, Roswald, you will lose your reputation in an instant and become an unsympathetic stray dog. The panic in her heart spread, and Alusha looked at Roswald's ferocious eyes and said softly. Only the two of them could hear the faint voice. Everyone else was confused and did not hear anything clearly. Really? You are suspicious. Of course I won't kill you, after all, we are allies. The cold face suddenly filled with a gentle smile, and Roswald explained, you said these words, do you know what it means? What does it mean? Alusha's mood was inevitably relieved, thinking that Roswald had really let her go. It means that I want you to die. How dare you threaten me, go to hell, trash. At this moment, Roswald changed his face again, his eyes shot out scarlet hostility, his right hand covered with a lot of magic fluctuations, and all of them blasted out. Boom! The huge shock wave penetrated Alusha's body and easily sent her flying, blood spurting from the corners of her mouth. Her body smashed the wall and fell on the road. What do you mean by this? Alusha, who stood up from the ground, was stunned, not expecting Roswald to change his face so quickly. She immediately tried to fight back, but her whole body suddenly hurt like needles, and she had problems walking, let alone fighting back. A fox will always reveal its tail, no matter how clever the concealment is. There will be clues exposed, and this time, it's time for you to die. Who will win in the end, depends on who is more skilled. Dustless smiled slightly and continued to watch coldly. He also had his own plans. Go to hell. Roswald was indifferent, and with a wave of his hand, a large sea of fire suddenly appeared in the void and smashed towards Alusha very ferociously. At this moment, Alusha was extremely embarrassed, her abdomen was pierced and she could see the other side of the world. If she continues to be burned by this sea of fire, the end result will be miserable. Even if she has 10 lives, she will still be burned alive. Although Alusha is a member of the Blood Clan and her body can break out of the cocoon and be reborn, but this is not immortality, she is not an existence like Dustless. Just you wait. Alusha's eyes were bloodshot as if they were about to pop out of their sockets. She then turned around and retreated without hesitation. How naive, in front of me, do you think you still have a chance to escape? Roswar's face was filled with disdain as he raised his head and suddenly dropped his big hand. Boom, boom, boom. In the blink of an eye, the falling sea of flames seemed to have grown eyes as it changed the direction of its fall and smashed directly onto Alusha's body. Ah, it hurts, it's burning me to death. In the sea of fire, a figure covered in flames wailed, his voice filled with endless pain. This time, you didn't even leave a corpse behind. Let's see how you're going to make a comeback. Roswald laughed in his heart, and at the same time, he walked to Amelia's side with great respect. Lady Amelia, although I can understand your mentality, I still hope that you can continue to participate in the selection. After sorting out his thoughts, Rossival advised, you haven't quit yet, and that group of people is so unscrupulous that they dare to hire assassins to murder you. If you withdraw from the king's choice later, the consequences will be unimaginable. But, Amelia's eyebrows turned gently as she voiced out her inner doubts. Since they wanted to assassinate me, why did they choose Rom? Were there any other misunderstandings? What do you think, Dustless? Finally, Amelia looked at Dustless. Damn it, it's this guy again. Will he die if he doesn't show off? Caillou Yang complained about Dustless's dissatisfaction with Dustless in his heart. Every time it was a close call, this guy would always be able to stand out. This matter has been filled with countless puzzles from the beginning. Dustless also nodded and looked at Roswar with a profound look, full of alternative meanings. What's with this guy's look? Roswer's heart trembled as if his biggest secret was discovered by Dustless, and he was extremely upset. What's wrong? Elusa admitted it herself that she was an assassin hired by another king's heir. The purpose was to kill Lady Amelia. In this way, there is one less candidate for the king's heir. There are a lot of things that are wrong. Dustless said faintly, and then contemptuously said, the mastermind behind the scenes must be an idiot with a negative IQ, and the show is full of flaws. You said the mastermind behind the scenes is an idiot? Roswer forced a smile on the surface, but in his heart, he was scolding Dustless. Isn't the mastermind behind the scenes himself? First of all, the biggest problem is what Amelia said. Since it was to assassinate her, why did they find trouble with Rom? And, the most incredible thing is this all a coincidence? Rom is the weakest among us, and the lady named Elusa obviously knows this. Other than that. In short, there are too many suspicious places. It's really a clumsy script. Dustless pointed out a lot of loopholes, and Roswer listened more and more. He never thought that Dustless actually had detective attributes. Roswer, I promise you that I will continue to participate in the King's Heir. Even if it's not for myself, I have to think about everyone's safety. Finally, Amelia mustered up her courage and her face was resolute. Her eyes were full of the light of no regrets. Dustless was still silent. No matter what the result was, it had no impact on him. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:35. Fianna's mind was in a mess. She looked at the approaching god Fengzhou, not knowing what to do. She had imagined the scene after the two met, but she didn't expect it to be such a cruel scene. Fianna's faith was slowly crumbling. The confidence she had built up was also completely destroyed. Right, there's no need to kill you so quickly. God Fengzhou seemed to have thought of something and stopped. His gloomy and unkind expression disappeared in an instant, returning to his cold and indifferent expression. Did you remember me? Fianna stared blankly for a moment, then asked in ecstasy, we've met before. So what? Who would have thought that God Fengzhou's words would make Fianna despair again? She said coldly, if you knew me and still dared to flirt with Wu Qin, then all the more reason I should kill you. Moreover, letting you die comfortably would be letting you off too easily. God Fengzhou was like a demon at this moment. He sneered at Fianna. His words were full of ruthless mockery. But I really don't know Dustless. I even have a grudge against him, and the reason is because of you. Fianna felt very wronged, and her voice was somewhat choked. That's why I don't plan to kill you. God Fengzhou said meaningfully. Really? Fianna's beautiful eyes once again revealed a trace of hope. She longed for God Fengzhou to remember the past. I'll kill you in front of that stinking brat Dustless. God Fengzhou said coldly, if that brat Dustless is heartbroken, even if I'm killed by him, I'll see him in pain and understand my pain. Even if I'm killed by that brat Dustless, I'll die without regrets. But what if Dustless really doesn't know me? Wouldn't I have died for nothing? Fianna frowned. At this moment, she really felt that God Fengzhou was possessed. This is killing an innocent person. Fianna reminded. If you kill an innocent person, then so be it. You can only blame your bad luck. Of all people, you just had to be related to that bastard Dustless. God Fengzhou was like a robot. When he spoke, there were no fluctuations. You really have changed. Hearing this, Fianna smiled bitterly and looked at God Fengzhou in a daze. It seemed that Dustless was right. He had already turned God Fengzhou into a mental patient. Do you hate him? Fianna did hate Dustless, but Dustless was right about some things. Fengzhou knew that he was no match for Dustless, so he should have left or tuck his tail between his legs. However, this guy did not know when to back down. Until now, he was still thinking about how to take revenge on Dustless. Didn't he deserve to be beaten up? Let go, you can't possibly be Wu Chen's opponent. Fianna advised sincerely. She had seen how powerful Dustless was. On the other hand, God Fengzhou seemed to have lost the feeling of the old Liena Subble. Challenging Dustless like this was tantamount to courting death. In any case, God Fengzhou had done Fianna a favor. If it were not for God Fengzhou, Fianna might have died a few years ago. Therefore, she did not want him to fall. However, it would have been better if she did not say these words. The moment she finished speaking, God Fengzhou's face suddenly turned cold. Fianna even felt that it was difficult to breathe. Preposterous. Even a small character like you dares to look down on me? God Fengzhou glared at Fianna. His teeth were about to shatter. Being looked down on by Dustless was one thing, but even this captive was looking down on him. How could God Fengzhou's arrogant heart accept this? I don't mean to look down on you. This is the truth. Seeing that God Fengzhou did not listen, Fianna's tone became more serious. If it weren't for the fact that you still have some use, would have let you die without a burial ground. God Fengzhou sneered. No matter if Fianna was sincerely persuading him or if she was being hypocritical, he was extremely annoyed whenever Dustless was mentioned. The next morning, the morning wind was mighty and there were no clouds in the sky. A group of people gathered at the gate of Alicia Elven Academy. Claire, Linslet, and Alice were all here. Only Fianna was missing. Where did that big-breasted, brainless princess go? She couldn't have run away, right? Claire's gaze spread out, taking in all the figures in the surroundings. She did not find Fianna. Maybe she's still sleeping. Dustless replied uninterestedly. Soon after, he looked at the sun hanging high in the sky and said, "It's getting late. Let's go together. That princess doesn't like me anyways. It's better if we don't bring her along. It saves me trouble. Let's go." That's true. The three women nodded slightly. Fianna had only joined this group to trick Dustless. Along the way, the three figures gradually disappeared until they turned into black dots and completely disappeared. Other than Dustless, who was more casual, the three women were more reserved. After all, Dustless had offended too many people. God Fengzhou, Geo, Celestia. It would be terrible if he was ambushed. No need to be so nervous. If they dare to appear, they won't be able to return. Dustless smiled, full of confidence. They were just a few clowns. There was no need to go through so much trouble. You make it sound so easy. Do you think everyone is as perverted as you? Claire rolled her eyes. After all, everyone only had one life. They couldn't be careless. Claire's words are reasonable. We should still be vigilant when it's time to be. Alice also agreed with Claire's point of view. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. It was also at this moment that a sharp explosion sounded. A cold light streaked across the sky and flashed before everyone's eyes, heading straight for Dustless. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2236. You think I am a demon. After all, I am indeed your demon, but there is no grievance in this world that cannot be resolved. As long as you want, I can actually incarnate into a saint. Dustless looked at the embarrassed Alusha and dragged his voice with a different meaning in his tone. Anyone could hear it. If he wanted to kill Alusha at this moment, it would be as simple as eating and drinking, but Dustless didn't do it. The meaning was self-evident. You mean, Alusha's mind flashed away. She could live until now and her IQ was naturally good. Are you willing to help me? No. Speaking of this, Alusha's cheeks dimmed. She didn't seem to have any value in making a deal with Dustless. This guy wouldn't help her for no reason. There would be no pie in the sky for no reason, and Alusha looked at the wound on her lower abdomen and said bitterly to herself, "That guy Roswald is cruel and has seriously injured me. I'm still alive now. I'm just holding on, or I'm not willing to die." This is normal. Who would want to die if they can live? I have lived for hundreds of years and I still have some nostalgia for this colorful world. Dustless said, staring at Alusha's bad injury, and said, that guy Roswald is ruthless. Your internal organs are all destroyed and you can still talk to me. This shows that your race is relatively good and your vitality is very strong. So what, I still can't escape death. Alusha gritted her teeth and said, it's a pity that I have done all the bad things and death is not enough. Anyway, I also thought of this day. The only thing that makes me surprised and angry is that I didn't expect to die so easily. That guy Roswald really deserves to die, he dared to betray me. He really deserves to die, he's very good at playing with people's hearts. Dustless nodded. Roswald was indeed a scheming bitch. His acting skills could be called the movie king. If it weren't for Dustless being a traveler, he might have been deceived by his gorgeous and real acting skills. I can let you continue to live, but how are you going to repay me? Dustless stared at Alusa for a while and said leisurely, your injury is impossible for others, but it's a piece of cake for me. What's your choice? Really? Alusa was stunned for a moment before she stood up. Her face was flushed and she was extremely excited. No wonder Dustless didn't kill her. It turned out that he still felt that she was useful. I can. Alusa's brain cells accelerated and she came up with her trump card in an instant. I can tell Master Dustless everything about Roswald. It had to be said that although Alusa's strength was average, her mind was quite sharp and she knew what Dustless wanted. That's good. You're very smart. I like tactful women. Dustless smiled and nodded. This was what he needed. When he brought Alusa to Roswald, he didn't know if he would jump up in fright. Then Dustless helped Alusa treat her wounds. This kind of serious injury would be fatal for others, but for Dustless, who has countless abilities, it's a piece of cake and it's not worth mentioning at all. Time flew by and half an hour passed quietly in a blink of an eye. Alusa also recovered and she looked at Dustless with respect and worship as if she was looking at a god. His strength is unparalleled and he has unfathomable abilities. It seems good to be loyal to such a master. Alusa muttered in her heart as she looked at Dustless. Especially since he and Dustless have the same enemy, Roswald. Master, there's something I don't understand. On the path in the wilderness, Dustless and Alusa walked side by side. Thinking of Dustless's strength, Alusa couldn't help but wonder. Speak. Dustless simply said one word. With your strength, it's only a small problem to defeat Roswald, but why did you let him live? Alusa was full of doubts as she had full confidence in Dustless's strength. It turned out to be this matter. Dustless was also dissatisfied with concealing and said slowly, Alusa, you have to remember that although violence can solve all problems, it is the most rude way. If I kill Roswald rashly, how do you think others will see me? Of course, I don't care about those outsiders, but I still have to understand the feelings of Amelia, Rom and Remington. Especially the maid sisters, they have a deep affection for Roswald. I don't have any evidence. If I kill him for no reason, they will definitely hate me for life. But that bastard Roswald sent me to attack Rom and let me kill her. The sisters were deceived. Alusa said unwillingly, that guy is really insidious. In order to achieve his goal, he actually let me attack the people he cares about the most. Yes, but that guy won't admit it. I can't do anything about it, so I have to collect evidence, expose that bastard, and then. Dustless's eyes were cold, let him die in the most painful way. That's what I'm going to do. Since he's going to die anyway, it doesn't matter if he jumps around for 2 more days. Just like Saiwa Subaru, although the skill, Death Samsara, is very powerful, once Dustless determines that the world has no value, he will destroy him. Of course, it's not necessary to kill him. Sometimes killing a person will free the other party. For example, sealing Saiwa Subaru alone for thousands of years. There are too many ways to deal with him. Gulp, looking at the murderous Dustless, Alusa suddenly shuddered. She couldn't help but rejoice at her choice. Roswald is just playing a small conspiracy, but Dustless is a real power. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 evaluation votes plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 22:37. Ah, my hand. You actually cut off my hand? I'll definitely bury you bastard with me. Ouch, 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 it hurts. God Fengzhou screamed. Even though his right arm was crippled by Dustless, his hysterical screams were still filled with hatred for Dustless. Really, was this kid's head kicked by a donkey? Claire and the others frowned. At first, they couldn't bear it, but after hearing that not only did God Fengzhou not repent, he even cursed Dustless. Didn't he deserve to die? He clearly knew he wasn't the enemy's match, yet he still cursed him. Wasn't this courting death? For a moment, their sympathy for God Fengzhou quickly disappeared. The three girls silently looked at God Fengzhou, acting as if it had nothing to do with them. After all, it had nothing to do with them. God Lord. Seeing this, Fianna opened her mouth wide and hurriedly ran over. Get lost. God Fengzhou waved his arm and looked at Fianna unkindly. Everything is because of you, woman, Jinx. Hearing God Fengzhou say this, Fianna felt extremely wronged. She had always been on his side. What a pity. Dustless shook his head and glanced at Fianna with pity. He bluntly said, didn't I say it before? This God Fengzhou has already become mentally deranged by me and has become mentally ill. Why do you have to get involved? He's no longer the same person. It was undeniable that Dustless was the cause of God Fengzhou's current state. But so what? Wasn't the so-called protagonist meant to be bullied? If he wasn't pleasing to the eye, just beat him up. You just asked for someone else's last words. Now, I want to ask for yours. Dustless looked at God Fengzhou with a biting cold gaze. He then looked at Fianna and said coldly, I'm about to kill this kid. If you want revenge, then bring it on. Perhaps because the blow was too severe, Fianna's entire body was like a statue. Last words? God Fengzhou's eyebrows twitched, his eyes were filled with a strong desire to live. Die just like that? Perhaps he could, but before that, there must be a prerequisite, and that was to drag Dustless down with him to the grave. However, now that his hand was crippled, it was obviously nonsense. Not to mention that he had lost his hand, even if his limbs were still intact, he would definitely not be Dustless's opponent. Then, I can only choose someone else. God Fengzhou's cold gaze flickered back and forth before finally landing on Claire and the others. Since it was impossible to kill Dustless, he could only choose the weaker ones. This way, God Fengzhou was confident he could take them down. Swish. Swish. Thinking of this, God Fengzhou's killing intent soared. His whole body turned into a black bolt of lightning. His large hand turned towards the completely unknown Claire. God Fengzhou understood that she had the best relationship with Dustless in this group because the two had known each other the longest. There was no doubt about their relationship, and with Claire's strength, she was easy to deal with. If she died, Dustless would definitely be sad. Despicable. Seeing this, even Fianna couldn't help but secretly curse. Was this still the God Fengzhou in her heart? He was simply a despicable and shameless villain. Humph. Dustless's gaze also became colder and colder. He clenched his fist and was about to attack when a curved flame suddenly whipped towards God Fengzhou. Pa! This whip could be said to be merciless. It even carried a flame attack, burning God Fengzhou's face. Ah, my face. God Fengzhou howled in pain after being hit again. On his handsome face, a scarlet burn marked the size of a thumb was incomparably hideous. Humph, you sinister guy, you think this young lady is easy to bully? Claire's beautiful eyes froze. She looked at God Fengzhou unkindly and said in annoyance, a man like you is even more hateful than Dustless. No matter how bad he is, at least he won't kill a woman. Although Dustless does things despicably, he definitely won't shamelessly sneak attack others in a battle," Claire said in an incomparably serious tone. That resolute and decisive tone seemed to understand Dustless very well. "That's right. Compared to Dustless, God Fengzhou is far inferior." The other girls also nodded. Whether it was Alice or Linslet, they all felt that Dustless was countless times stronger than God Fengzhou. There was no comparison at all. "Damn, are you guys praising me, or did you guys discuss beforehand to slander me together?" Dustless's face was full of black lines. He touched his nose and was extremely embarrassed. It sounded like Claire was praising him, but in fact, it was the same as pointing at Dustless's nose and scolding him. "Forget it, I'm a great person who doesn't remember the wrongs of a petty person. Besides, this little girl didn't do it on purpose." In the end, Dustless chose to swallow this resentment. As a man, sometimes there was no need to be too calculative, especially when the other party was a woman. He shouldn't be calculative about small things. "What do you think of this kid now?" Dustless suddenly looked at Fianna. He saw her eyes full of disappointment, as if someone had taken away her soul. He said indifferently, "Do you hate me for turning him into this? What do you think?" Fianna only looked at Dustless coldly, but soon sighed faintly and explained, "But this isn't your fault. At most, God Fengzhou's skills are inferior to others." Previously, Fianna had always called God Fengzhou Lord, but now she directly called him by his name. It could be seen that the relationship between the two had become a lot more subtle in an instant. At least, it wasn't as harmonious as before. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 gifts plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2238. Hearing this, Dustless smiled and stopped paying attention to Fianna. It seemed that no matter how stubborn a person was, as long as they were hit too many times, their thinking would be overturned. "I used to like you a lot. Sometimes, I would even see you in my dreams. When I woke up, would be in a daze, wondering where you were." Recalling the past, Fianna's pretty face revealed a happy smile. Although the time she met God Fengzhou was very short, it was the happiest time of her life. However, everything that happened today shattered Fianna's dreams. As the saying went, as the environment changed, everyone would change. A little girl will always be a little girl. Just because someone saved your life, you fell in love with him. How childish. Dustless only curled his lips in disdain. He could only say that Fianna was too naive. After all, she was still a child at that time. Dustless had saved countless people, but he didn't see them dedicating themselves to him. However, now, then, Fianna's eyes suddenly turned cold. Fianna's beautiful eyes were emotionless. She said in a cold and hoarse voice, "You've completely chilled my heart. I can understand if it's just to take revenge on Wuchen, but you've already lost your mind. You don't care even if you use despicable means. This kind of person is really bad. You are no longer the Liena Subble I know. Really bad." These three simple words were Fianna's evaluation of God Fengzhou. "Could it be that you are? Great, I remember who you are." God Fengzhou looked at Fianna in a daze. He suddenly remembered something and slapped his forehead. "You are the little girl I saved back then?" God Fengzhou suddenly remembered. They had the same hair color and the same face. The only difference was that Fianna's pretty face was isolated from the world. She looked at God Fengzhou with endless disgust. "You finally remembered me?" Fianna asked coldly. This is," recalling what he had done to Fianna, God Fengzhou's face blushed. He looked at Fianna with great embarrassment and gritted his teeth. "Back then, I saved you once. Now, you can't just watch me die, right?" "Humph." Hearing this, Fianna only snorted coldly. She didn't say anything, but her gaze was even colder and her heart ached. The meaning behind God Fengzhou's words was very simple. He wanted Fianna to stand on his side and help him avert danger. At the very least, he had to plead with Dustless. "You once saved me. I am very grateful, but... Fianna's gaze fell on Dustless's head. She coldly asked, if I tell you not to kill him, will you hold back? Oh, this? Dustless rubbed his chin. Finally, he shook his head and said, I showed my kindness once before. As long as this brat left my sight, I could let him go and let bygones be bygones. But, as you can see, he is seeking death again. Dustless looked down at God Fengzhou. There was only pure killing intent in his eyes. Now, he will die without a doubt. You heard that? Fianna slightly nodded. She gazed at God Fengzhou and said, I have already pleaded for you, but this brat doesn't appreciate it. So, you should change your conditions. You better understand your own identity. Without me, you little girl would be a corpse. There wouldn't even be anyone to collect your corpse. God Fengzhou was furious. He raised his voice and angrily rebuked, You trash, is this how you talk to your savior? Useless thing, you can't even solve such a small matter. If I knew you were so useless, I wouldn't have saved you. Trash like you should just die on your own. I don't want to waste my breath. Cheap mouth. Fianna strode over with her head held high. She stared at the face in front of her and slapped him twice. Pa. 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 God Fengzhou's old face suddenly had two glaring palm prints. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Even his mouth was crooked from the slaps. He couldn't even speak clearly. Idiot brat, you deserve it. You think that just because you saved someone else's life, Fianna is yours? This kind of stupid thinking makes me feel like you haven't grown up yet. You are still a 3-year-old child. Not only did Dustless look at all this with a sneer, but even Claire and the others looked at him coldly. Only when one lost something would one cherish it. Even if God Fengzhou wanted to redeem himself, it was already too late. He had already deeply hurt Fianna. But in Dustless's eyes, this was also a good thing. In any case, God Fengzhou had already become mentally ill. In the future, Fianna would also suffer with him. It was better to leave as soon as possible so that she wouldn't be poisoned too deeply. Brat, now is the time to say goodbye. Look at this azure sky for a while longer. Dustless slowly walked over. Light flickered in his hand as the heavenly sword condensed from the glint fruit appeared in his hand. He held it high above God Fengzhou's neck. No, I can't accept this, I can't die here. God Fengzhou completely exploded after hearing Dustless's words. He didn't even care about his life as he tried to grab at Dustless. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Seeing this, Dustless didn't hold back. He swept his sword and the sharp blade went straight for God Fengzhou's head. Poochie. God Fengzhou's head was chopped off and fell to the ground. His body also became a headless corpse. His neck was like a hot spring, spurting out bright red blood. Plop. God Fengzhou's head fell to the ground. Even at the moment of his death, his face was filled with unwillingness. His eyes were still blankly looking at the azure sky, full of reluctance and deep nostalgia. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2239. Miss Cursius, just say what you want to say. Don't stare at me like that. Wu Chen said slowly, if you want to marry Keiichi Subaru, that's the best. You can choose someone who is uglier than a pig. That guy has a special taste. He likes this type of girl. If it's him, I can make the decision for Keiichi Subaru. Pfft, Cursius chuckled when she heard this. Her eyes narrowed into crescents. I didn't expect you to be so humorous. I was too reserved. I've always thought that the stronger a person is, the colder and more aloof they are. Do you think I'm the same? Dustless asked without changing his expression. He said slowly, you can't judge everyone with the same stick. In this world, there are exceptions to everything. I'm not as arrogant as Julius, but that's only if you don't provoke me. Is that so? Perseus nodded thoughtfully and said, but the person in the marriage isn't Keichu Subaru. He's just a servant and isn't qualified. Wait. Dustless suddenly stopped Perseus and asked with a frown, with all due respect, the marriage you mentioned. Amelia doesn't seem to have agreed. That's true, but she'll definitely agree. Perseus suddenly laughed and said confidently, Dustless, do you know? Because you are too strong, the other King's Choice candidates have contacted each other in private to deal with you all together. Am I that attractive to hate? Dustless had a helpless expression when he heard this. He smiled bitterly and said, in the end, I'm the one who's dragging Amelia down. Although it's not all your fault, it's also inextricably linked to you. Perseus nodded and said with a smile, the other candidates are all targeting her. If I propose an alliance at this time, Amelia will definitely accept. But why are you looking for me? Dustless was still annoyed. Then, he suddenly thought of something. Don't tell me you want to marry Amelia. There's no need to think about it. It's impossible. Without even thinking about it, Dustless refused on the spot. Why are you so sure? Perseus pursed his thin lips and asked with interest, can you represent Amelia's will? I don't think so. Maybe not for other things, but definitely for this. Dustless said faintly, change it to someone else. It's best if it's Keichu Subaru. That way, I can be at your disposal. Actually, there's another person who's quite suitable. A strange light flashed through Perseus's eyes. He once again sized up Dustless with a resplendent gaze. It was as if he was looking at a perfect piece of jade. He clicked his tongue in wonder. Could it be, even if Dustless was a blockhead, he still understood Perseus's plan? Miss Perseus, the marriage partner you mentioned, don't tell me it's me? You've finally guessed correctly. Perseus nodded heavily. Although you don't have a noble title, your strength is amazing. Overwhelming power can make up for everything. This guy, hearing this, Dustless's forehead darkened. This girl really liked to be straightforward. I'm not bragging. Dustless's eyes shone brightly. I'm loved by everyone. Flowers bloom when they see me. Who do you think is worthy of me? Who can marry me? So give up. Actually, if you want to cooperate, you can go directly to Amelia. You don't have to come to me. A marriage alliance is unnecessary. Although a marriage alliance could improve the relationship between allies and bind them together, in Dustless's opinion, it was completely unnecessary. To be honest, there's no girl in my house who's worthy of you. Perseus spoke the truth. Then, the sudden sentence made Dustless stand up instantly. So I've decided to do it myself. I'll marry you. This way, we'll be one. You and I have a marriage alliance. Did I hear wrongly? Dustless looked at Perseus in surprise. He was speechless. Miss Perseus, are you serious? Of course, Perseus admitted calmly, staring straight at Dustless. How come you don't even look embarrassed when you say something like that? I'm really starting to suspect your gender now. According to Dustless's understanding, a girl should be abnormally shy when she said such words. However, Perseus's gaze was magnanimous. Not only was he not embarrassed at all, he even said seriously, this way, the benefits are too great. Great, my ass. Dustless rudely interrupted her. Maybe it's good for you and Amelia, but for me, it's also good for you. At least you'll have me, right? Perseus blinked. She spoke so naturally, so casually, and so calmly. Hearing that, Dustless looked at Perseus with a puzzled expression. He was really speechless for a while. He didn't know what to say. Perseus frowned at Dustless. Seeing him hesitate, she spoke with a hint of dissatisfaction. Do you think you're losing out by giving you a beauty for free? You're really narcissistic. Dustless helplessly rubbed his nose and explained seriously, to be honest, even without allies, I can easily help Amelia become king if I want to. If everyone died, wouldn't all the problems be solved? Violence can't solve everything. Kurth shook his head. I have to say that you're very strong, but there are some problems that can't be solved with strength alone. You know why people are afraid of Amelia, right? Even if someone like her becomes king, what's the point? It'll be the same as a general without an army, Dustless said slowly. That's right. Perseus smiled and nodded. Then, she revealed a sly smile. Since you're so loyal to Amelia, you should at least sacrifice your body. Don't you care about Amelia a lot? Are you not willing to sacrifice a little? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2240. It doesn't make sense. There's no way you could have found us. Jules was driven mad and couldn't figure it out. He had been hiding recently because he was afraid that Dustless would find him and ruin his plan. But now, Dustless had suddenly jumped out like a ghost. Jules was really scared. He was also deeply puzzled and doubtful. How did this brat find him? It doesn't make sense. Why do you think I let you go? Dustless asked softly. He glanced at Restia and saw that she was in a daze. She was still burning with anger, so she probably knew that Feng Zhao was dead. You knew that Restia was with me, so you let me go on purpose and then secretly followed me? Despicable. G.O. was not an idiot either. Through Dustless saying so, he instantly understood his intentions. Follow you? Don't be so self-righteous, Dustless shook his head and said, look at your arm. I left a mark there. Mark? Ju's heart sank. He looked at his left and right arms and saw a unique symbol on the armpit of his right arm. You left this for me? Ju's eyes narrowed and his face turned pale. Without a doubt, this was left by Dustless. That's right. That's the Flying Thunder God Warlock. You can't escape. Dustless nodded lightly and continued, I've obtained Restia. Your mission is complete. Now, go and die. As his voice faded, Dustless slowly walked over. Damn it, Ju's eyes twitched and locked onto Dustless. His cold eyes were as calm as if he was looking at a dead man. There was no emotion in them. I can't die here. Gio's eyes turned and couldn't help but look at Restia. His eyes immediately lit up and he immediately dodged behind Restia. Stop right there. If you dare to take another step, I'll kill Restia and make you lose everything. Ju threatened with a smile. His scarlet eyes were filled with desperation. You dare to use me as a meat shield? All of this happened too quickly. Celestia was stunned at first, but soon after, she sneered and said, looks like you want to die a little earlier. As soon as she finished speaking, Celestia was about to attack Gio. Stop it, stupid woman. It's better for you to listen to me now, Gio whispered into Restia's ear, his voice as soft as a mosquito, afraid that Dustless would hear him. This guy cares a lot about you. If you die, he'll probably be very conflicted. So, don't act rashly. Cooperate with me. This way, the two of us can leave this place alive. Gio said softly, his voice so weak that only Restia could hear it. Hearing this, Celestia frowned and replied indifferently, I didn't expect you to become so smart. If you capture me, Dustless won't dare to act recklessly. After all, his goal is to obtain me. If I'm dead, a corpse is useless to him. It's good that you understand, so cooperate with me now. Gio heaved a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that Celestia would act recklessly. After all, this crazy woman couldn't be treated like an ordinary person. She was extremely dangerous. Also, I have to remind you, glaring fiercely at Dustless, Gio continued, you said that God Fengzhou is dead. Other than Dustless, there shouldn't be anyone else. What proof do you have? Celestia asked. I don't have any proof. It's just a pure guess. Gio shook his head slightly and said in a deep voice, God Fengzhou hates Dustless. Perhaps he went to seek revenge on this guy, but he was killed because he wasn't strong enough. Such words made Celestia fall into silence once again. She lifted her gaze slightly and looked at Dustless. A murderous intent flashed in her eyes. Geo, who was paying close attention to Celestia, smiled knowingly. Although that murderous intent came and went quickly, he could still see it clearly. He couldn't help but gloat. Celestia, Dustless is very powerful. We can only win if we work together. Cooperate with me now. After we escape, we will find a chance to kill Dustless together. Ju suggested. Celestia's eyes flashed and she nodded silently. You agree? Geo was overjoyed. However, not long after, his expression changed drastically. Pfft. At some point in time, a sharp dagger had appeared in Celestia's hand. She unceremoniously pierced Joe's heart and almost cut his stomach open. Under the instinctive reaction of pain, Geo let go of Celestia. What kind of show is this? Killing each other? Dustless rubbed his chin. His clear eyes swept around. This obviously wasn't a sad show. Joe's injury was fatal. His heart was destroyed. Not even God could save him. Bastard, what do you mean? Celestia. Geo was furious. His eyes were fixed on Celestia. His fists were sweating. If his body allowed it, he wouldn't mind dying with Celestia. You're right. Dustless is very powerful. Too powerful. Celestia also used a mosquito's voice to communicate. Only she and Geo could hear it. Then why did you plot against me? You want to fight him alone? Dream on. While Geo was furious, he didn't forget to look down on Celestia for overestimating herself. You and I can't defeat him even if we work together. Celestia only said one sentence. So I changed my mind. Since I can't defeat him by force, I can only ask a tiger for its skin for now. You want to rely on Dustless and find a chance to kill him? Joe's pupils suddenly shrank. He smiled sadly and said, It's said that beautiful women have the heart of snakes and scorpions. It seems that this saying is absolutely true. Plop. After saying that, Geo closed his eyes in despair and died completely. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2241. Shut the hell up. However, Amelia seemed to be really angry at this moment. This was the first time she had scolded Kaius Subaru since they had met for so long. Crack crack crack. Kaius Subaru's heart shattered into countless pieces because of Amelia's scolding. All this time, he had naively thought that Amelia hated him because of Dustless. However, this scene was a huge blow to him. Kaius Subaru's eyes dimmed as he looked at Amelia as if he had lost his soul. Now, Amelia, who was usually as gentle as water, actually scolded her for Wu Chen. Kaius Subaru's worldview suddenly collapsed. She muttered to herself, Sure enough, Wu Chen is my true love. Jealousy is useless. At this moment, Dustless gloated as he stared at Kaius Subaru's dumbfounded face. Serves him right. All right, I agree to let you marry me, Amelia said suddenly. Then, Amelia said something shocking as she looked at Cursius. I hope you can keep your promise. F***ck, you sold me out just like that? Dustless cursed and looked at Amelia dumbfoundedly. He didn't expect this girl to agree to Cursius's condition. Ha 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 ha. You deserve it. Kaius Subaru laughed and looked at Dustless happily. Cough, cough, cough. That Amelia, did you get something wrong? Dustless's expression was full of confusion as he ridiculed, You want me to marry Quirksiu? Did I hear you wrong? No, you didn't. Amelia nodded and looked at Dustless seriously. Miss Cursius is beautiful and cute. Don't you like her? This isn't a matter of liking or not. It's just that I've never met this fellow before. Moreover, Wu Chen's expression was extremely gloomy as he spoke until here. He complained in an unusually dissatisfied manner. You actually betrayed me without mercy. This is not betrayal. In the future, we will all be a family. How can this be considered betrayal? Besides. Amelia smiled at Dustless. I helped you find a beautiful wife. Shouldn't you thank me? Thank my ass. Dustless scolded angrily, then frowned and said, in short, I don't have the habit of marrying. You'd better find someone else. What a joke. How could Dustless casually agree to something like this? Absolutely not. You are Amelia's knight. Are you going to disobey her orders? Kurth could not figure out where Dustless's courage came from. Shouldn't this guy follow Amelia's orders? That's not it. From the very beginning, Dustless and I have never had a master-servant relationship. Amelia shook her head. Dustless helping her participate in the king's selection was simply to pass time. What is this? Can I understand that I've been set up? Kurth was stunned. Looking at Amelia's innocent little face, he felt like he had been set up. No matter what, I've already promised you. As for whether Dustless will marry you or not, that's between the two of you. Amelia smiled. The corner of her mouth revealed a faint smile that showed that her scheme had succeeded. Hearing this, the corner of Kurth's mouth twitched violently. He had clearly suffered a great loss, but he could not refute. After all, what Amelia said was the truth. She had already agreed to the marriage on behalf of Dustless. As for the matter of marriage and sleeping together, it was up to Kurth and Dustless to discuss. At the same time, in another direction. Why are you here? Hurry up and leave. Otherwise. Don't blame me for being rude. In front of a luxurious villa, Julius looked at the black-haired man in front of him with a stern gaze. He was extremely puzzled. This person was none other than Caillou Ezuaru. I'm here to cooperate with you. Caillou Ezuaru did not beat around the bush and said bluntly. Cooperation? With just you? Julius looked at Caillou Ezuaru with contempt and said with disdain, Aren't you Amelia's servant? Are you here to seek refuge with Lady Anastasia? With all due respect, Caillou Ezuaru, you don't have the ability. Hurry up and leave this place. Julius sneered without holding back. He did not have the slightest favorable impression of Caillou Ezuaru. Humph, you trash. Caillou Ezuaru was not made of mud. He said sarcastically, What right do you have to talk about me? You're still crushed by Dustless. You're just a small worm. Hearing this, Julius looked at Caillou Ezuaru quietly and said indifferently, That guy is very strong. Even if I lose, I won't blame or hate him. I have nothing to say if I'm not as strong as him. Besides, if you're here to sow discord, then I'm sorry to tell you that your plan has failed. You. Caillou Ezuaru was furious. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, I've already left Amelia's place. Now, take me to Anastasia. Is that so? Julius glanced at Caillou Ezuaru indifferently, but still shook his head. Sorry, you are too mediocre. What? Are you looking down on me? Caillou Ezuaru's eyes were spitting fire. He wanted to burn Julius alive. This guy's words hurt more than a slap to the face. Julius, let him in. At this moment, a young girl's soft voice came from the villa. Although Julius was dissatisfied, he still nodded respectfully. It was not difficult to see that the person who spoke was Anastasia. This is interesting. On the other side, Dustless also received the news that Caillou Ezuaru had left and sought refuge with Anastasia. Dustless was fine, but someone was furious. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2242. Celestia's cute porcelain doll face, her long hair casually hanging down to her waist, and her clear eyes filled with lust. Her watery eyes gently blinked as if they could release electricity. Not to mention others, even Dustless's heart was slightly stirred. Not bad. After muttering to himself for a while, Dustless nodded and smiled. Sometimes, pure admiration wasn't the same as lust. Not bad? This answer is really unsatisfactory. Celestia pursed her thin lips and puffed up her cheeks in anger. She asked in dissatisfaction, "Is it only not bad? Don't you think that's enough, you two? There are other people watching from the side. Don't treat us like Heir. If you want to have some alone time, wait until there's no one around." Unable to bear it any longer, Claire roared. She quickly walked over and forcefully pulled Dustless away. Shortly after, she placed her hands on her hips and pointed at Celestia while scolding, "Don't forget where we are right now. We're in public. There are also a few pairs of eyes watching." Ha 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 ha. Hearing this, not only did Celestia not mind, she even smiled elegantly. Not to mention men, even Claire's heart palpitated. When she reacted, she felt ashamed of herself. Some things, aren't they only interesting when done in public? Celestia asked back with a light smile. She even gave Dustless, who was behind Claire, a big wink as she spoke with deep affection. "Even so, you still have to distinguish the occasion." Dustless smiled. No matter what, he had lived for a few hundred years. No matter how Celestia bewitched him, the effect on him was negligible, or even non-existent. It could be ignored. Is this guy a block of wood? Or is he pretending to be reserved and embarrassed? Seeing Dustless being so uninterested, Celestia frowned. Although she still had a smile on her face, she was already gritting her teeth in her heart. How could this be? Am I so unattractive? In fact, Celestia was very confident in her looks. As long as she was determined to seduce others, not many people would be able to resist her. But Dustless was truly an exception this time, and it caused Celestia to feel an unprecedented sense of defeat, causing her to feel rather unwilling in her heart. If even Dustless could not seduce him, how could this guy lower his guard and kill him? Thinking of this, Celestia could not help but have a headache. Actually, it was not that Celestia was incompetent, but that he had chosen the wrong opponent this time. "Little girl, you want to fight with me? You'll tire yourself out." Dustless scrutinized Celestia from the corner of his eyes. In a trance, he seemed to have seen through her heart. His lips curled up slightly as he turned around and left. "It's getting late. Let's hurry up and deal with that military-grade strategic sprite. Maybe we'll be able to make it back in time for dinner." Around evening, Dustless and the others returned to the Elven Academy. On the way back, they met Fianna, who was in a daze. When they met her, she had almost lost her mind. Dustless and the others had no choice but to bring her back. "You killed God Fengzhou?" In the dean's office, Grievous stared at Dustless with a livid expression and said angrily, "You promised me that you wouldn't find trouble with him. Why are you going back on your word now?" Grieva glared at Dustless angrily. If it wasn't for the difference in strength between them, she would have already slapped Dustless to death. Forget about this bastard provoking her 3 or 4 times. Now, he even killed God Fengzhou. How could Grieva tolerate this? One had to understand that God Fengzhou's swordsmanship was taught by her. He could be considered half a disciple of Grieva's. Moreover, when she expelled God Fengzhou, it was to protect him in disguise. Who would have thought that he could not escape death in the end? There was such a thing, but... Dustless thought carefully and nodded lightly. Then, he said, "But don't forget the 3 points of agreement from before. As long as that kid doesn't come looking for me, I will let him go. But, this time, he ambushed me and wanted to kill me. Do I have to continue to abide by the agreement? He was courting death. What does it have to do with me?" Dustless's reply was sonorous and forceful. He was not afraid of Dean Grievous's identity at all. After all, strength determined everything. Although this woman had a high status, her strength was dozens of streets behind Dustless's. Forget it. What about that guy's corpse?" Grievous finally sighed faintly. She looked deeply at Dustless and asked helplessly, you wouldn't go so far as to whip a corpse, right? She buried it. Pointing at Fianna, who had been silent all this while, Dustless said frankly, also, I have completed the matter regarding the strategic level elf. If there's nothing else, I will go back and rest. Oh, right. Don't forget that you owe me a favor, old woman, Dustless turned his head and said the moment he stepped out of the door. Hurry up and disappear. Griva roared in disdain. If it were anyone else who dared to call her an old woman, she would definitely beat that brat up without even thinking about it. However, Dustless was an exception. That brat's strength had exceeded Griva's understanding. Blindly challenging him would only bring disgrace upon herself and gain nothing. The dead can't be revived. There are some things that you have to be more open-minded about. Looking at the despondent Fianna, Grievous could only sigh and persuade her. If she wanted to blame someone, she could only blame God Feng Zhao for not being tactful and offending someone he should never offend. I know, Fianna nodded silently. Her eyes were still cloudy and full of confusion about the future. Her goal in coming to this school was to find God Feng Zhao. Now that he was dead, where should she go in the future? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2243. Gently examining Fianna, Grievous had a lot of words in her heart, but she didn't know how to say them. She couldn't possibly ask her to take revenge, right? Dustless's unfathomable strength was extremely powerful. Not to mention Fianna, even she didn't dare to act rashly. A person's life is very long. You will meet many people in your life that you have a good impression of. In the end, God Feng Zhao was just one of them. God Feng Zhao was indeed good, but he has become a thing of the past. You are very outstanding. You have to look to the future. When the time comes, your destined marriage will naturally appear. Grievous advised meaningfully. It was a fact that God Feng Zhao had died. The dead had passed away. Those who were still alive had to look to the future. I understand, Madam Dean. Fianna nodded slightly and left without saying anything. It's best that you can look on the bright side. Grievous didn't stop her. Some psychological problems couldn't be resolved by others. The key was still herself. She could only hope that Fianna would walk out of the shadow by herself. Yo, beauty. Unexpectedly, as soon as Fianna left Grievous's office, she saw her lifelong enemy waving at her with a smile. Fianna stared at the person in front of her. The young figure reflected in her bright pupils was Dustless. You, seeing Dustless walking over with a smile, Fianna just said coldly, trying to strike up a conversation when someone is at their saddest. It's better not to use this kind of boring method. It will only make people dislike you. Strike up a conversation? You're thinking the wrong way. Dustless shook his head and said righteously, I know you hate me, but there's something I have to say again. You're still my team's underling, and I'm your boss. You have to listen to me. Fianna's eyes locked onto Dustless. She felt very conflicted. This was a good thing, but when it came out from this guy's mouth, it was like a mafia boss was about to gather his underlings for a fight. Just say what you want. Fianna was too lazy to bicker. She knew that she was far from being a match for Dustless. She would only be humiliating herself if she said too much. There's a competition recently. Although I'm not interested in participating, Alice and the others are forcing me to participate. It seems that the opponent is Alice's sister. They also want you to participate. After all, you're one of them. In the end, Dustless spread out his hands with a helpless expression. Aren't the few of you enough? To your team, everyone else is a burden. I think you alone can become the champion of the Fairy Sword Dance Festival. Fianna asked bluntly while looking at Dustless. I have no interest in participating in that kind of competition. Fame and fortune are like floating clouds to me. Dustless shook his head. His tone was calm and tranquil as he said, I'm just accompanying them for a little bit. In any case, I have nothing better to do. I didn't expect you to be so gentle. I always thought you were a cold-blooded animal. Fianna looked at Dustless in surprise. Her eyes were somewhat inexplicable. Don't look at me like that. Dustless touched his nose and saw that Fianna's eyes were shining like a mirror that had been wiped extremely bright. He was rather speechless and said, I am a person with principles. Sometimes, I really can't stand those people who pretend to be pretentious in front of me, so I can't help but beat them up. Who asked them to be weak and have no awareness at all? I hate those people who pretend to be powerful the most. If they want to annoy you, please forgive me. Sigh, this is an old problem. Sigh. Dustless made a forced and helpless expression. You're right, this time, Fianna didn't object to Dustless. Instead, she nodded in agreement. Fengzhao and Gio didn't have the strength, and they insisted on acting cool in front of Dustless. In the end, they were killed. They deserved it. After all, if you want to act cool and seek death, you have to look at who you're dealing with. Hee hee, it's good that you can understand me. Then, what about this time? Dustless blinked his eyes in anticipation. The past is the past. People should look to the future. After a moment of silence, Fianna finally left these words. She didn't say anything else and left Dustless with her back facing him. Seems like she agreed. Dustless smiled. Looking to the future meant that the past was the past. There was no need to dwell on it. In other words, regarding Fengzhao's death, Fianna didn't want to ask anymore. Sure enough, being a bad person has its benefits. Dustless revealed a faint, thought-provoking smile. Sometimes, it wasn't a good thing to be too open. There were a lot of restrictions when doing things, and it was very inconvenient. On the contrary, the identity of a bad person was very suitable. Anyway, he was used to being thick-skinned. Dustless's dormitory. She agreed. Alice and the others looked at Dustless in surprise. They didn't expect Fianna to be so easy to talk to and really agree to Dustless. In fact, when they proposed this condition, they didn't have much hope. After all, they all knew about the relationship between Fianna and Fengzhao. Fengzhao had always been Fianna's lover. Now that he was killed by Dustless, she should hate him greatly. But she agreed so easily. The girls were really surprised and inconceivable. Once I set out, what can I do? Dustless asked calmly. It's normal for Fianna to agree. That Fengzhao has long been beaten into a mental patient by me. He doesn't treat Fianna as gently as before. Instead, he used Fianna many times to threaten me and even wanted to kill her. Don't forget, if it weren't for me, that girl would have been killed. To be honest, I think Fianna should thank me. You're shameless enough. Claire and the others rolled their eyes. Only Dustless could say such deranged words without blushing or panting. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2244. It was Dustless who killed God Fengzhao, causing Fianna to fall into the darkness of her life. After all, he was her dream lover, her spiritual pillar. It was fine if he was framed and killed by Dustless, but now Dustless actually shamelessly said that Fianna should thank him. Was there anything more shameless than this? This is the truth. Dustless glanced at the girls and calmly said, if it weren't for me, Fianna would still be pursuing that stinking brat. Now that she's free, shouldn't she thank me? Really? You, Claire and the others looked at each other and shook their heads. They didn't argue anymore. Anyway, they all knew how shameless Dustless was. Trying to reason with this guy was just asking to be humiliated. But then again, it's good that she can participate. We must win this competition. Linslet stroked her golden hair, her beautiful eyes filled with fighting spirit. Win the final victory? Alice also repeated. She was very different from her previous confident self. Her spirit was slightly confused and dispirited. After all, her opponent was her sister. You think it's impossible? Dustless looked at Alice lightly. Perhaps her sister, Versilia, was like a magic wand that couldn't be surpassed. Moreover, it was deeply rooted in her heart. Bang bang bang. At the same time, a dull knocking sound suddenly sounded. It was extremely loud, as if someone was kicking the door with all their strength. The explosive sound made Dustless frown. Could it be that chick Fianna? Seeing this scene, Wu Chen slowly walked over. Just as he was about to open the door, a bang sound was heard. A hole was directly kicked in the door of his house. TSK, this is really arrogant. Dustless was still smiling mischievously, but a cold light flashed in his eyes. If he continued to remain silent after being slapped in the face, where would he put his face? Although Dustless sometimes disdained to fight with small characters, those clowns who liked to provoke him, especially those who did it with such great fanfare, couldn't be let go. However, the few people that came into view made Dustless frown deeply. Who are you? Looking at the unfamiliar faces in front of him, without exception, they were all unfamiliar women. Dustless wasn't familiar with them, and at the same time, he didn't know them. They are my sister's followers, Alice said, a trace of worry flashing in her beautiful eyes. This is interesting. Dustless's eyes slightly narrowed. Although the girls in front of him were not bad, they were ignored by him. He sighed and said, I thought they were guests. They are other people's lackeys. What did you say? Say it again if you dare. Dustless's words were like the detonation of a super bomb. The girls glared at him angrily. Ever since they followed Versilia, they were respected wherever they went. Now, this bastard Dustless actually called them lackeys. How dare he? Did I say something wrong? Although they were all beautiful girls, Dustless's words were merciless. He coldly mocked, if you are not lackeys, then what are you? Not to mention once, even if I say it 10,000 times, I will dare. If you piss me off, I will get a loudspeaker and broadcast it in this school every day. You. Hearing this, the girls were furious. Everyone's face was filled with anger. They had always been regarded as geniuses. When had they ever been slandered like this? Pay the price for your stupidity. The girls started fighting without saying anything, reaching for the weapons at their waists. All of you, stop. At this moment, Alice suddenly stood in front of Dustless, preventing the situation from getting out of hand. Humph, do you only know how to hide behind a girl? Versilia's followers were furious. If it weren't for Alice, they might have already beaten Dustless up. They would have beaten this brat up until his face was swollen. Hee hee, sorry, I am such a coward. Are you going to bite me? Dustless chuckled and mocked, I like to live off a woman. If you are not happy, tell Alice not to protect me. You cowardly man. Versilia's followers were furious. How could there be such a shameless man? Even though he was living off a woman, he still spoke so righteously and openly. Can't you be a little more normal? Alice turned her head and looked at Dustless helplessly. Then, she looked at the girls and said coldly, Big sister asked you to come find me, Alice, go away. Don't protect this guy. A coward like him is not worth it. Versilia's subordinate didn't wait for Alice to finish her sentence and interrupted her, scolding Dustless for being useless. You have misunderstood. Looking at the girls calmly, Alice said calmly, This guy is very strong. Even Big Sister is not his match. Also, I am not standing between you to protect Dustless. Then what is it? Versilia's followers asked. It is to protect you from being hurt by this guy, Alice said softly. Alice said softly. After all, she had seen how terrifying Dustless was. If things went wrong, there might be a few more lives. Are you looking down on us? However, the girls were furious. They looked at Dustless, who was smiling cheekily. This guy was not only beautiful, but his skin was as white as snow. He looked very smart. He was a typical sissy and pretty boy. How could he have the demeanor of a strong warrior? Let's go. Bring me to see big sister. Alice shook her head. She was too lazy to talk nonsense with this group of people. They were too ignorant. Humph, Versilia is not looking for you. She is looking for this guy. Everyone looked at Dustless. Their eyes flashed with different meanings. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:45. Let's go. Bring me to big sister. Alice shook her head. She couldn't be bothered to waste her breath on this bunch of ignorant people. Humph, Lady Versilia didn't look for you. She's looking for this guy. Everyone turned to Dustless, their eyes glinting with a different meaning. Looking for me? At this moment, it wasn't just the others who were stunned, even Dustless was filled with bewilderment. He only knew very little information about Versilia. In short, this woman was powerful and extremely arrogant. She looked down on everyone, including her younger sister, Alice. Of course, this was normal. All powerful people had their own pride. Young people all had their own personalities and tempers. Even though it was childish and laughable in Dustless's eyes, this was very rare and normal. Are you afraid? Seeing Dustless's frown as though he was afraid, Versilia's followers immediately sneered. A good-for-nothing who lives off a woman is indeed a good-for-nothing. You're really lucky to be summoned by Lady Versilia. I really don't know where you got your luck from. Regarding this, Wu Chen just laughed it off and treated it as a fart. He didn't even listen to it and said, "Why did your boss summon me? Don't tell me she thinks I'm handsome and wants to have a one-night stand with me? I'm warning you, I'm not that kind of person. You can't sleep with me without paying." Pfft. Hearing this, Alice spat out her saliva. Her face was covered in cold sweat. She subconsciously looked around and heaved a sigh of relief after seeing that her sister didn't appear. If she heard this, the consequences would be unimaginable. There would definitely be an earthquake. You better watch yourself. If you dare to talk to my sister like this, you'll definitely be chopped into pieces. Definitely. Alice warned in an extremely serious tone. Afraid that Dustless wouldn't believe her, Alice continued, "My sister is very powerful, second only to the strongest sword dancer, sacrificial lotus asubble. Don't spout nonsense. Offending her won't do you any good. Besides, I don't think she has any ill intentions towards you. The point is that I'm not spouting nonsense. I really think that your sister is plotting something against me. It's very possible that she slept with me without paying." Dustless had an aggrieved look on his face, but in his heart, he did not think much of it. That was because the strongest sword dance sacrificial lotus asubble was the god of wind Zao, and unfortunately, that guy had already been played to death by him. Madman, madman, madman. You must be a madman. When Dustless said this, Versilia's followers were in an uproar. They stared at him, dumbfounded. This hothead's brain must have been squashed by a door. He didn't even know how to spell the word death. If Versilia found out about this, someone would definitely die. In their opinion, the person who would be bleeding would definitely be Dustless. In their eyes, Versilia was invincible. Now, we'll give you a chance. Take back what you just said and kneel down and apologize sincerely. We can let bygones be bygones and forget about what happened just now. Versilia's followers looked unfriendly. If Alice hadn't stopped them, they wouldn't have minded swallowing Dustless alive. Kneel down and apologize? On account of your ignorance and ignorance, I'll spare your lives. Dustless glanced at them indifferently and spat out a word with a face full of annoyance. Scram. What did you say? Versilia's followers were enraged. They were about to unsheath their long swords. Why aren't you scramming? Do you need me to chase you away personally? When she saw that Wu Chen was really infuriated, Alice berated loudly as well. She knew that once Wu Chen was really infuriated, then the consequences would absolutely not be tolerated by this group of people, and it was even to the extent that her sister would be implicated. Versilia's followers were about to vomit blood. All along, they had been in the limelight. Today, they were humiliated by Dustless. The impact was especially huge, and it left a psychological shadow in their hearts. Just wait and see. The few of them left ruthless words. They were so angry that their eyes turned red, and they retreated pathetically. If they continued to stay here, they would definitely continue to be humiliated. After all, girls were very thin-skinned. Really, there are more and more cats and dogs who like to bully others. Just looking at them makes me want to vomit. It's a pity that their good looks are going to be ruined. Dustless sighed faintly. Bullying others was human nature, and it was hard to change. Sigh, don't you know that you have to look at the owner before beating a dog? Offending my sister won't do you any good. This is equivalent to making a strong enemy for no reason. Alice was full of worry and headache. Dustless was really too good at causing trouble. Some words that could be considered taboo should not be said, but this guy could say it in the most infuriating tone. Isn't this just right? Dustless smiled disapprovingly, and said straightforwardly, anyway, I still feel that my current life is too dull and boring. If your sister can bring me excitement, maybe I'll be kind and generous and let her be my maid. It's not impossible. You're really arrogant, aren't you? Hearing this sentence, even to an outsider like Alice, Dustless was asking for a beating at this moment. Moreover, her sister would definitely fly into a rage if she knew. Alice could even see Versilia's furious expression. Anyway, I don't care. In the next competition, I will meet your sister. Since the battle is about to start, it's not a big deal for me to add fuel to the fire. Dustless was indescribably carefree. His words showed that he did not care about Versilia at all. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2246. You sure are relaxed, aren't you? Alice was speechless. Who was her sister? Other than Liena Subble, she was the most powerful person in Alicia Elf Academy and was admired by many. Her strength was self-evident, but now she was being treated like a joke by Dustless. Wasn't he courting death? He must be tired of living. I'm not afraid of your sister. On the contrary, I'm curious. Why is she looking for me? Dustless stroked his chin and said narcissistically, could it be that she has taken a fancy to me and wants me to sleep with her? In your dreams. Alice rolled her eyes and glanced at Dustless in annoyance. Versilia suddenly finding trouble with Dustless spread like wildfire in a short time. After all, the former was a famous person in the academy, and Dustless was the only male elf envoy. Both of them received a lot of attention. Therefore, the moment the commotion broke out, it spread throughout the entire Alicia Elf Academy. That guy rejected her? In the luxurious dormitory, a cute and tall girl frowned. Her eyes were filled with surprise. She carefully looked at the few people, and the shock in her eyes could not be concealed. All along, not many people dared to go against him. They even avoided him as much as they could. Dustless was the first, breaking the exception that had been there for a long time. Tell me what that guy said. I'm quite interested, the girl said with a dignified voice. The young girl spoke softly, her tone dignified. The girls in front of her all nodded, their faces filled with respect. This person's appearance was similar to Alice's. The only difference was that she was more energetic than Alice. Her whole body was glowing with a powerful aura, and she gave off the feeling that she was not inferior to men. She was Alice's sister, Versilia. What? That guy really said that? Hearing her subordinates criticize Dustless's crimes, especially when Dustless said that he would not pay for sleeping with her, Versilia's beautiful eyes trembled slightly, and there was a hint of shock in them. Dustless's guts were not small. Dustless? Versilia murmured softly. Soon after, the corners of her mouth curled up with interest. I'd like to see where he gets the courage to slander me like this. At night, the sky gradually darkened and the temperature gradually dropped. Bang bang bang. Just as Dustless was about to go to sleep, the dull knocking sound came again. It was different from the sound of the door being kicked during the day. This time, it was very gentle and rhythmic. The first impression he gave was that he was very polite. Who's trying to ambush us in the middle of the night? Dustless yawned. He was wearing pajamas, and his hair was still wet. He opened the door in boredom, and his face was full of laziness. Creak. The door was gently opened, and a familiar yet blurry face entered. Who are you? Dustless asked. He was 100% sure that he had seen this face before, but he couldn't remember who it was. You don't know me? The visitor raised her eyebrows slightly, looking extremely surprised. After all, she was a public figure. Most of the people in this school knew her. What a joke. Are you famous? Why should I know you? Dustless grinned and said, there are so many narcissistic people nowadays. My name is Versilia, Alice's sister. The young girl's tone was calm. Her beautiful eyes stared straight at Dustless, and she deliberately emphasized, I'm also the former leader of the Wind King Knights. Oh. So it's you. Dustless suddenly realized and laughed. You're the boss of those clowns during the day? You're not here to find trouble with me, are you? The boss of those clowns? Versilia's forehead darkened, and the corner of her mouth twitched. This was the first time someone called her the boss of those clowns. Wasn't he looking down on her? Forget it, I'm not going to argue with this country bumpkin. After taking a deep breath, Versilia's heart calmed down again. Just as she was about to speak, Dustless's sudden words almost made her go berserk. Let me tell you, little girl. Don't think that you can get a discount just because you took the initiative to find me. You can't afford to sleep with me. Even if you take out your entire family, you can't afford this price. Dustless's tone was very serious, and his eyes looked at Versilia sternly. You bastard, Versilia almost couldn't help but slap him. She finally understood that her subordinate was so angry that she almost cried. This guy was too shameless. He didn't have any integrity at all. Also, may I ask if you are really that expensive? What did he mean by I can't afford it even if I take out my entire family? Versilia was incomparably furious. Her entire body was about to combust. Not only did she feel that she was being looked down upon, even her own family was being looked down upon by Dustless. Kid, remember this clearly. I'm not here to talk nonsense. Also, you better shut up now. You'll definitely regret the price of angering me. Don't play with fire. Versilia resisted the urge to beat Dustless to death and said expressionlessly, I heard that you and Alice are very close. I'm just curious about what kind of man she likes. At the end of her sentence, Versilia's gaze was abnormally cold. She wanted to see through Dustless. Do you think that I'm ordinary and mediocre? Do you think I'm an idiot? Versilia stared at Dustless for half a minute and remained silent. It was Dustless who broke the silence first. You, Versilia's face stiffened. Frankly speaking, she couldn't see anything special about him. Other than being good-looking, he was just ordinary. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2247. Not only Anastasia, but everyone else also thought that Dustless would definitely not be able to withstand this terrifying move. At the very least, he would be severely injured. After all, under such a terrifying move, everything in the world would be as fragile as paper. It was not that they were too weak, but that Reinhardt was too powerful. However, as the saying went, laymen look at the surface, while experts look at the skill. This was referring to laymen like Amelia, who only saw the surface of things. This guy. What kind of freak is he? Julius stared at Dustless in the smoke and dust, cold sweat dripping down. He suddenly remembered what he had said before. If I'm serious, this world may come to an end. When I'm frivolous, you should have a sincere heart and thank me. This sentence was naturally said by Dustless. At first, when Julius heard it, he sneered at it, thinking that Dustless was arrogant and spoke without thinking. However, after seeing how terrifying Dustless was today, he remembered that this sentence was true. If he was serious, perhaps this world would really be finished. Compared to Dustless, the so-called witch of jealousy was too insignificant. Lady Anastasia, although it's very inappropriate to say this, for the sake of your life, please be careful with your words and don't offend him. Julius looked at Anastasia, full of helplessness. What do you mean, Julius? Don't beat around the bush. Looking at Julius with a stern gaze, Anastasia's small mouth gently pouted, unusually unhappy. Is Wu Chen, that guy, seriously injured? With a look of expectation in her eyes, Anastasia said seriously, if that's the case, that's great. No, this guy is unharmed, nothing happened to him at all. Julius said very seriously, on the contrary, not only is he unharmed, this guy isn't even serious. To put it bluntly, if he thought about it just now, we might have all been killed in seconds. Why? Anastasia asked in confusion. Dustless didn't attack us, so why would we be killed? In this world, some people might be born to stand at the end of the sky. They are unimaginably strong. Julius smiled bitterly, and said indignantly, there's no need to deliberately attack us. I'm afraid that the aftermath of the battle would be enough to shatter us, and not even leave any remains of our corpses. It can't be that bad, right? Anastasia said doubtfully. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At this moment, a gust of wind swept across the horizon, blowing away the dust on the ground. Dustless's body also appeared. It was exactly as Julius had said. Dustless had gotten a blade of grass from somewhere in his mouth, and was holding it in his mouth lazily. Is that all? Reinhardt, you're really disappointing. That move of yours, Wang Su's flash, only brought out 1/10 of its power. Wu Chen looked at Reinhardt with a bored expression. His interest was waning. He ignored Reinhardt's ugly expression and said, is this the Sword Saint? It's really disappointing. It's so boring. This guy is too arrogant. There's a limit to how much he can look down on others. He said that he only brought out 1/10 of his power. If we were to have a worldwide bragging competition, Dustless would definitely sweep away all his opponents and become the unprecedented champion, Anastasia said disdainfully. Anastasia said with extreme disdain. Due to the previous duel with Julius, he had easily defeated her knight, causing Anastasia to lose face. Thus, she was extremely displeased with Dustless. She would not let go of any opportunity to snipe Dustless. For example, she had taken in Kai Yuezwa because she felt that the two of them had a grudge, so she replaced him. Lady Anastasia, I have to tell you that Dustless's words are not exaggerated. On the contrary, he's being humble. Glancing at the sky, Julius had goosebumps all over his body. He shuddered, and even his soul trembled. Julius, don't slander yourself because of someone else's prestige. Dustless is not that powerful. What do you mean by if he didn't deliberately suppress it, the aftermath of the battle could have wiped us out? This kind of joke is really boring. Anastasia groaned, full of resentment. Haven't you noticed it yet? Julius sighed faintly and pointed at the sky. You'll know when you look at the sky. What's there to see in the sky? Isn't it just? Ah. What's going on? The disdain on Anastasia's face turned into endless fear and astonishment. Why did the sky become like this? Anastasia's scream attracted everyone's attention. Everyone raised their heads to look at the sky in astonishment and stupefaction. What's going on? Who did it? They actually pierced through the sky. This shouldn't have been done by that fellow Wu Chen, right? Are you kidding me? Is this something a human can do? Where did this guy come from? Everyone was stunned. They looked up at the sky. The sky within a radius of tens of kilometers had been completely shattered. It was pitch black and dead silent. The originally blue sky had turned into oppressive dark clouds. They could see the Milky Way in the depths of the universe. It was as if the dark abyss was connected to the vast universe. Gulp. Anastasia looked at Dustless in panic. Her soul trembled. That quiet appearance made it seem as if he had done something insignificant. Do you understand now? Julius smiled bitterly. Dustless shot that move into the sky. Once the energy exploded on land, the area within a radius of tens of kilometers would be affected. Do you think we can still survive? If he wanted to kill us, he could have used the aftershocks to crush us into nothingness. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus more, 3,000 rewards plus more, 1,000 comments plus more, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more. Chapter 2248. Crushed into nothingness by the shockwaves. Hearing this, Anastasia immediately shuddered, and the way she looked at Dustless changed drastically. There was less disdain and disapproval, and more respect and respect. In the face of an expert, especially a heaven-defying character like Dustless, no one dared to be impudent. What should I do now? Anastasia was extremely conflicted. She suddenly felt that she was in a dilemma. If she wanted the throne, she had to be invincible against someone like Dustless. She didn't think that she had the life to contend against Dustless. She was unwilling to give up, but if she didn't give up, she would have to be enemies with Dustless. Such a difficult choice was truly frustrating. Curseus, this guy, is really smart. Anastasia couldn't help but look at Curseus, who was also dumbfounded, and she couldn't help but feel a little jealous. If she had seen the opportunity in advance and adopted the marriage strategy, she wouldn't be in such a passive position now. Now, she was somewhat envious of Dustless's strength. Sure enough, the marriage strategy was right. It doesn't matter even if it's a little inconvenient. Curseus beamed, his mood suddenly brightening. Looking at the shattered sky, the terrifying black hole that was dozens of kilometers in size devoured the world, as if it would dismember and devour everything that came close. Everyone who saw this felt their hearts tremble. At first, before Dustless had displayed his strength, Curseus had felt wronged by the marriage, thinking that he had gotten the better end of the deal. But now, looking at this terrifying strength that could shatter heaven and earth with a snap of his fingers, it could even be said that even if he really became the king, a single word from Dustless could topple that king. In the face of absolute strength, everything was too fragile. Swish. 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 At the same time, a sharp light flashed over the plains and swooped down with extreme speed. In the blink of an eye, it was infinitely close to Dustless. There was no doubt that this person was Reinhardt. The great sword in his hand was aimed at Dustless and slashed down. Boom boom boom. The huge slash whizzed out once again. It was even more ferocious and powerful than before. The destructive light was permeated with a biting cold aura that made one's hair stand on end. Obviously, Reinhardt also knew how powerful Dustless was, so he used all his strength to fight to the end. At the same time, Dustless's strength also aroused Reinhardt's competitive spirit. After all, for many years, there was almost no one who could compete with Reinhardt. Petty tricks. In the face of such an earth-shattering golden giant slash, even the sky was cut open by it. The magic power went berserk, and the mountains shook as if an earthquake was coming. However, Dustless remained motionless as if he was floating as a feather. Buzz buzz buzz, Dustless's palm suddenly emitted a huge ray of light. Although it was small in size, it was extremely dazzling, just like the sun rising in the darkness, extremely dazzling. Dow Breaker 88, Flying Dragon Strikes the Thief. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. With a flick of his finger, a thick ray of light cut through the sky. The sharp whistling sound that came from the air was like the soft cries of thousands of birds. It was frightening. Gulp. At this moment, everyone swallowed their saliva and held their breath. They stared at the sky and the two powerful attacks that were about to collide. Boom, boom, boom. The moment the two collided, the space within a radius of dozens of miles trembled violently. In the area closer to the center of the battle, the sky was like a mirror, with dense cracks appearing. It was as if a strong wind would completely collapse. Are they going to cancel each other out? Julius was also shocked. It was the first time in his life that he had seen such an intense battle. He looked up and saw two rays of light clashing in the sky, neither giving way to the other. No one could do anything to the other. Cancel each other out? In other words, it's a draw? Then I'm really sorry. Dustless shook his head and said in a cold tone, "In my dictionary of life, there is no draw. My enemies usually sleep forever, ka ka ka." Dustless's words were really effective. The moment his voice fell, one of the two rays of light that were fiercely colliding could no longer hold on. Circles of cracks appeared on its brightly colored surface. As the collision continued, the cracks grew bigger and bigger, gradually spreading all over its body. Oh no! Seeing this, Reinhardt was shocked. He did not expect that his ultimate move would be the first to fail. It was crushed by Dustless's attack, and it was defeated so easily. Bang bang bang. Accompanied by a crisp explosion, the powerful slash that clashed with the sky-shaking thunder cannon was unable to withstand the ferocious attack. It vanished into thin air and was forcefully pulverized. Swish swish swish. After destroying Reinhardt's attack, the huge beam of light did not lose its momentum. It tore through the vast sky like a meteor and smashed straight at Reinhardt. Damn it! In the face of such a ferocious attack, Reinhardt cursed loudly. He gripped the hilt of his sword tightly with both hands and looked at the beam of light in front of him solemnly. He raised the dragon's sword high and slashed down fiercely. Boom boom boom. A huge slash swept out and collided head-on with the incoming beam of light. An endless shockwave erupted, and Reinhardt, who was caught off guard, was sent flying several hundred meters away. His internal organs were trembling and almost dislocated, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Lost. Reinhardt lost. He lost everything. Julius shook his head gloomily. Although Reinhardt did not fall, things had developed to this point. He had already lost. Bang bang bang. Dense cracks had already appeared in the sky that had been destroyed earlier. This time, the clash between the two of them erupted with endless destructive shockwaves that completely shattered the sky. The blue sky shattered again, revealing the unfathomable dark universe in the void. The endless stars were clearly visible, shining and filled with the most mysterious luster. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 comments plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2249. Reinhardt's expression was extremely interesting. Not to mention the alternating between green and white, there was also endless weakness. That move just now was really too terrifying and powerful. To put it bluntly, if it wasn't for the fact that the power of Flying Dragon Strikes Thief had been unlimitedly weakened by a lot, he would have died without a doubt if he had taken that attack head-on. Dustless, this guy is really strong. Everyone looked at Dustless in shock. This guy was completely beating up Reinhardt. The two of them were not at the same level at all. No, it would be more appropriate to say that they were not in the same dimension at all. Am I going to admit defeat just like that? Reinhardt's eyes flashed with deep frustration. Dustless's strength was beyond his imagination. He was almost completely suppressed by Dustless. He didn't even have the slightest strength to fight back and was mercilessly beaten up violently. He even almost died just now, but he was not willing to give up. Come on Dustless, Reinhardt is leaking oil, beat him to death. Cheers to encourage Dustless suddenly rang out. Everyone looked towards the source and saw that it was Ferret, whom Reinhardt supported. This guy, Reinhardt wanted to cry but had no tears. He looked at Ferret with extreme anger and cursed in his heart, I worked so hard to help you seize the throne, and you actually support the enemy. Dustless had given him a big blow, but Ferret at this moment had given Reinhardt a heavy blow in his heart. The gap is too big, you should give up. Dustless's voice suddenly came. If you continue to fight, you may not just be injured. Reinhardt was already injured. If he continued to fight, the consequences were self-evident. That won't do. In the end, Reinhardt shook his head and said righteously, countless knights have died in battle, but have you ever seen a knight escape? The price may be your life. Dustless shook his head and said, in the beginning, your starting point is wrong. Ferret is not suitable to be king, and she has no interest in participating. She has been used to being free since she was young, and to her, being king is not a good job. Instead, it will restrain Ferret. Maybe. After a moment of silence, Reinhardt nodded and said, however, you've heard of the saying, there's no turning back once you've shot an arrow. Since I've embarked on this path, there's no reason to turn back so easily. Besides, there's no turning back for me. There's no point in talking to each other. Bring out your full strength. Dustless didn't waste his breath. Knights were stubborn. In their eyes, dignity was more important than life. Even if they died, they wouldn't give up easily. Then I'll let you have a taste of my strongest attack. Reinhardt didn't waste any more time. He gripped the dragon's sword tightly with both hands, and a terrifying force spread out, shooting straight into the sky. Boom, boom, boom. The supreme momentum shot into the sky and shook the earth. Since it was the last attack, Reinhardt naturally wouldn't show any mercy. He brought out the strongest technique in his life. As the saying goes, when immortals fight, mortals suffer. The current situation was just like that. With Reinhardt's full strength eruption, the people around him who had nothing to do with him were in big trouble. Damn it, do you feel uncomfortable? Get out of here. I can't breathe. The expressions of Amelia and the others who were spectating the battle, as well as the other King's Choice candidates, changed drastically. Reinhardt's heaven-defying level was beyond their imagination. Not only had he extracted the mana in the atmosphere, but even the air had been sucked away. Several people felt the danger of suffocating. Look, what's that? Someone exclaimed and looked up, only to see a large amount of mana gathering above Reinhardt's head and gradually compressing it. Eventually, it turned into a huge sword that was dozens of meters long. This huge and tough sword was golden in color. It looked like Reinhardt's sword, the dragon's sword, but closer to an enlarged version. An ancient sense of oppression slowly overflowed. Everyone, retreat with me. Julius took a deep look at Reinhardt, knowing that this guy was going to go all out. He quickly yelled at everyone to leave. They might also be affected. That's more like it. Just now, it was just a small fight. Noticing the sharpness of the giant sword, Wu Chen just smiled and passed it by. Then I'll also be a little serious. Wu Chen's smiling expression suddenly disappeared, and his eyes rotated gently. At this moment, the dark pupils disappeared and were replaced by the eternal Manjiki Sharingan with a 5-pointed star. Blast him to pieces. Reinhardt shouted loudly, and the golden sword above his head fell from the sky, covered with terrifying magic fluctuations, as if it was going to split the whole world. Just a toy that can't withstand a single blow. Staring at the falling sword, Dustless closed his eyes in boredom and murmured softly, in front of my Kinsusano, any destructive attack is just a foil to Kinsusano's power. The moment his voice fell, Dustless suddenly opened his eyes, and the chakra in his body erupted, and the materialized monster soared into the sky. Boom! The sky suddenly trembled. Looking up, the falling golden sword was caught by a huge shadow, and a thick arm held it tightly. What kind of monster is that? Reinhardt looked up at the sky, stupefied. However, this was not the most surprising thing. Susanoo's sturdy arm tightened, and immediately exerted a little force, and the golden greatsword that was tightly grasped was unexpectedly crushed. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.